Billionaire helps a single mom crying in a parking lot. What he finds in her car changes his life forever. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor boardroom, but Julian Thorne didn't notice. He never noticed the weather anymore. Weather was inefficient, unpredictable, beyond his control. He focused instead on the spreadsheet projected on the wall, rows of numbers that represented his empire's latest quarterly performance. Thorne Logistics had exceeded projections by 12.3%, 12.3, perfection. The new zero-tolerance policy is working exactly as designed, he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs around the mahogany table. Employee lateness has dropped 94%. Productivity is up. We've eliminated the human error factor. Marcus Chen, his CFO and oldest friend, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Julian, we've terminated 68 employees in the last month alone. Some of them had been with us for years. Don't you think? I think, Julian interrupted, his grey eyes cold as steel, that we built this company on precision. 4 minutes late is still late, Marcus. There are no acceptable excuses. If we tolerate weakness, we become weak. He was 44 years old and worth $2.3 billion. He'd built Thorne Logistics from a single delivery truck into an empire that stretched across 48 states. He'd done it by eliminating chaos, controlling variables, refusing to accept anything less than perfection. His father had been chaos, drunk and unreliable, a dock worker who couldn't keep a job or a promise. His mother had worked herself to death trying to compensate. Julian had learned early that the only way to survive was to control everything, to never let emotion cloud judgment, to run his life like a perfectly calibrated machine. The meeting ended. Julian returned to his office, a minimalist space of glass and chrome overlooking Lake Michigan. No photos, no personal touches, just clean lines and empty surfaces. He checked his watch, a vintage Patek Philippe that had cost more than most people's cars. 6:37. His driver had called in sick, some family emergency. Inefficient. He'd have to stop at the grocery store himself on the way home. He needed water, Fiji water, specifically. The penthouse supply was running low. Across the city, in a neighborhood where the streetlights flickered and the pavement cracked, Maya Brooks was reaching the end of her rope. "Mum, can I get the chocolate milk?" 8-year-old Noah tugged at her sleeve, his brown eyes hopeful beneath a mop of dark hair. Maya looked at the price tag, $2.79. She had $11 in her wallet until Friday. $11 for groceries, for gas, for everything. "Not this time, baby," she said softly, her throat tight. "But we have regular milk at home, and I can add a little honey. You like honey milk, remember?" Noah's face fell, but he nodded. He was so good, so patient, so much better than she deserved. At 8 years old, he already understood what "we can't afford it" meant. What kind of mother let her son learn that lesson so young? She pushed the cart through the aisles of the discount grocery store, calculating each item: store-brand bread, eggs, pasta, the basics. She'd lost her job at Thorne Logistics 3 weeks ago. Fired. 4 minutes late because her car wouldn't start, because the battery was dying and she couldn't afford a new one. 4 minutes after 7 years of perfect attendance, of extra shifts, of never complaining. The termination letter was still in her car, crumpled on the passenger seat. Zero tolerance policy, no exceptions. Signed by Julian A. Thorne, CEO. Now she worked at Rosie's Diner. Night shifts that paid half what the warehouse had. She came home smelling like grease and coffee at 2 in the morning, while Noah slept at her mother's house. She was 32 years old, and she felt ancient. The rain started as she loaded the groceries into her 2008 Honda Civic. Not a gentle rain, but a deluge, the kind that turned Chicago streets into rivers. Noah climbed into the back seat, clutching his broken flashlight, the one he'd been trying to fix for weeks with electrical tape and hope. "It's okay, Mom," he said when she didn't start the car right away. "The rain always stops." Maya turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, died. She tried again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. No, 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 no. She pumped the gas pedal, twisted the key harder, as if force could will the car to life. "Please, please, not now." The engine was silent. Maya stared at the steering wheel. The rain pounded on the roof like accusations. She had $43 in her checking account. A tow would cost at least $70. A mechanic would cost hundreds she didn't have. Her mother lived 20 miles away and didn't drive at night. The bus didn't run this route after 7. They were stuck. The reality of it crashed over her like a wave. Everything she'd been holding together, all the careful budgeting and late nights and fake smiles for Noah's sake, all of it collapsed in that moment. She couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't keep pretending she was strong enough, that love was enough, that she could carry the whole world on her shoulders. A sob broke from her chest. Then another. Then she was crying, really crying, her forehead pressed against the steering wheel, shoulders shaking. "Mom," Noah's small voice came from the back seat. "Mom, don't cry, please don't cry." He climbed into the front seat and wrapped his thin arms around her neck. He was trying to comfort her, this baby who should never have to comfort his mother. She could feel his flashlight pressing against her shoulder, broken but still clutched in his hand like a talisman. "I'll fix it, Mom," he whispered. "I'll fix the car. I've been watching videos. I can learn." That made her cry harder. Julian had just purchased the Fiji water when he heard it. A sound that cut through the rain and the late evening quiet of the parking lot. Someone crying. Loud, gasping sobs that spoke of complete desperation. He paused at his car, a black Mercedes that cost more than most houses. The crying was coming from an old sedan 3 spots over, steam rising from its hood. A woman was slumped over the steering wheel. A child's face was visible in the window, arms wrapped around her. Julian's first thought was annoyance. A broken-down car was blocking the most efficient exit path. His second thought was to get in his car and leave. This wasn't his problem. People broke down all the time. That's what roadside assistance was for, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the rain, reminding him of the night his mother had broken down on the expressway with no money for a tow. Maybe it was the child's face, pale and frightened. Maybe it was something else entirely, some impulse he couldn't name. He walked to the car and knocked on the window. The woman's head jerked up. Her face was blotchy with tears, mascara running. She was younger than he'd thought, maybe early 30s, with dark hair plastered to her cheeks. Even crying, even desperate, there was something in her eyes, dignity, pride, the kind that came from having nothing left to lose. She rolled down the window an inch. "I'm fine," she said, her voice rough, "just waiting for someone." "Your car's smoking," Julian said, "and you're blocking the exit." It came out harsher than he'd intended. He watched her face harden, that dignity turning to steel. "Then go around," she said. They stared at each other through the rain. He should walk away. This was exactly the kind of messy, inefficient, emotional situation he'd spent his whole life avoiding. Instead, he said, "Pop the hood." "What?" "Pop the hood. I can take a look." "I don't need your—" "You're stuck in a parking lot in a rainstorm with a child. Just let me look." Something in his tone made her hesitate. Maybe it was the fact that he was already getting soaked, that he hadn't gotten back in his expensive car. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the way Noah was watching through the window with hopeful eyes. She pulled the hood release. Julian shrugged out of his suit jacket and laid it over the Mercedes, his $2,000 jacket, casually abandoned. He rolled up his sleeves and opened the hood. Steam billowed out. He waved it away and peered inside. He hadn't worked on cars in 20 years. Not since he was a teenager, desperate to escape his father's chaos by losing himself in the logical world of engines and transmissions. But muscle memory was a strange thing. His hands found the battery terminals, corroded and loose, found the distributor cap, cracked, found the serpentine belt, frayed to breaking. "When's the last time you had this serviced?" he called over the rain. "I can't afford service." Her voice was tight. Embarrassed, angry, Julian worked in silence, tightened the battery terminals, adjusted the distributor as best he could without tools. It wouldn't last long, but it might get her home. His shirt was soaked through. Rain ran down his neck. He didn't care. "Try it now," he said. She turned the key, the engine caught, sputtered, then roared to life. Julian slammed the hood shut. He was drenched, his $500 shirt ruined, his hands black with grease. He looked like a drowned rat, and it was the most alive he'd felt in years. The woman got out of the car, stepping into the rain. She was shorter than he'd thought, wearing a diner uniform under a thin jacket. She pulled something from her pocket, a crumpled $5 bill. "Here," she said, holding it out, "for your trouble." Julian stared at the money. $5. It was probably all she had. The gesture hit him harder than any boardroom negotiation ever had. "Keep it," he said. "I don't take charity." "It's not charity, it's just—" He didn't have words for what it was. She pressed the $5 into his hand anyway, her fingers cold and shaking. "Thank you, but I pay my debts." She turned to get back in the car. That's when Julian saw it. The passenger seat, papers scattered across it, and on top, a letter with a logo he'd seen 10,000 times, Thorn Logistics. His heart stopped. He moved closer, reading the visible words through the rain-streaked window. Termination, effective immediately, zero tolerance policy, 4 minutes, Julian A. Thorn, CEO. The world tilted. This woman, this crying, desperate woman with a broken car and a $5 bill, was one of the 68, one of the numbers on his spreadsheet, one of the eliminated human error factors he'd been so proud of 3 hours ago. He'd done this to her. His policy, his signature, his obsession with efficiency had put her in this parking lot, crying in the rain, unable to afford chocolate milk for her son. Maya was already in the car, engine running. She pulled out of the spot without looking back. Julian stood in the rain, holding a $5 bill that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Through the back window, he saw the boy watching him, small face pressed to the glass, clutching that broken flashlight, looking at him like he was some kind of hero. Julian wasn't a hero. He was the villain in this story, and he'd never even known it. He walked back to his Mercedes in a daze, got in, started the engine, but he didn't drive home. He sat there, water dripping from his hair onto the leather seats, staring at that $5 bill. He'd built an empire on the principle that perfection was possible, that inefficiency was the enemy, that 4 minutes mattered more than 7 years of loyalty. He'd been so sure he was right, and he'd destroyed this woman's life without a second thought. Julian looked up at the rain-streaked windshield. Somewhere out there in the storm, she was driving home in a car that might break down again at any moment. She had a son who tried to fix things with electrical tape. She had $5 less than she'd had an hour ago, because pride mattered more than practicality. She had dignity in the face of complete devastation, and Julian had caused that devastation. He pulled out his phone, opened his employee database, searched for terminations in the last month, 68 names. He started reading. Maya Brooks, age 32, warehouse picker, 7 years employment, perfect attendance record until final incident. Reason for termination: 4 minutes late. No prior warnings, no exceptions. Her address was there. Her emergency contact, Sarah Brooks, mother, her next of kin in case of accident, Noah Brooks, son, age 8. Julian sat in that parking lot for an hour, reading a file that reduced a human life to data points. Single mother, no father listed for the child, lived in Hammond, Indiana, commuted 40 minutes each way, took every overtime shift offered. Never called in sick. He'd fired her for 4 minutes. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice he'd been ignoring for 20 years whispered, "What have you become?" Julian Thorne had built his empire by eliminating chaos. But chaos, he was beginning to realize, was just another word for humanity, and he'd eliminated his own humanity along with it. He put the car in gear, but he didn't drive home to his empty penthouse. He drove to the office. And he started making calls. 3 days later, Maya was scraping dried ketchup off the counter at Rosie's diner when the stranger walked in. It was the lunch rush, though rush was a generous term for the scatter of customers nursing coffee and day-old pie. Her feet ached. She'd worked a double shift, 7 in the morning to 11 at night, because Carol had called in sick, and Rosie couldn't afford to turn away even the possibility of customers. Noah was at her mother's house again. She'd see him for an hour before bed, help him with homework while fighting to keep her eyes open, then collapse until the alarm screamed at her to do it all over again. This was her life now. This was what 4 minutes had cost her. "Sit anywhere, honey," Rosie called from behind the register, not looking up from her crossword puzzle. "Menus on the table." The man chose a booth by the window. Maya grabbed her order pad and walked over, mentally preparing her script, friendly but not too friendly. Efficient. She couldn't afford to lose this job too. She looked up and froze. It was him, the man from the parking lot, but he looked different in daylight, without rain streaming down his face. Younger than she'd thought, mid-40s, maybe, sharp features, grey eyes that seemed to see too much. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her car had when it was new, but his hands still had faint stains under the nails. Motor oil. He hadn't completely scrubbed them clean. Recognition flared in his eyes too. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Coffee," he said finally. "Black, and whatever the special is." Maya's hand shook slightly as she wrote, "Meatloaf. Comes with mashed potatoes and green beans." "That's fine." She walked away before he could say anything else, before he could ask if her car was still running, before he could see the shame burning in her cheeks. Why was he here? This diner was nowhere near the neighborhood where she'd broken down. It was a working-class place, the kind where the coffee was always lukewarm and the vinyl booths had duct tape holding the cracks together. Men in $1,000 suits didn't accidentally end up at Rosie's. She poured his coffee with unsteady hands, set it down without making eye contact. "Thank you," he said. His voice was different than she remembered, softer, less harsh. Maya nodded and turned away. "Wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. "The car," he said. "Is it still running?" "It's fine," she lied. The battery had died again 2 days ago. She'd bought a used one from a junkyard, installed it herself, following a YouTube video while Noah held the flashlight. It had taken 3 hours and all of her knuckle skin, but she'd done it. She didn't need this stranger's pity. Good. That's good. The silence stretched out. Maya felt rather than saw the other customers watching. Rosie had looked up from her crossword, interest sharpening her weathered face. "I'll get your order," Maya said, and escaped to the kitchen. She leaned against the walk-in cooler, pressing her forehead to the cold metal. What was he doing here? Why had he helped her that night? Why did the memory of his rain-soaked shirt and grease-stained hands make something in her chest ache? "You okay, sweetheart?" Rosie appeared beside her, concern creasing her face. "Fine. Just tired." "That man bothering you?" Maya looked through the window. He was staring at his coffee, lost in thought. "No. He helped me the other night, when my car broke down." "Helped you? That's a $2,000 suit, Maya. Men like that don't help girls like us unless they want something." The words stung because they were probably true. Maya had learned that lesson the hard way with Noah's father, David Preston, the corporate lawyer who treated her like a dirty secret and disappeared the moment she told him she was pregnant. Men with money saw girls like her as entertainment, not equals. But this man hadn't looked at her like that. He'd looked at her like she was a person, which somehow made it worse. She plated the meatloaf and carried it out, set it down in front of him. 35 minutes, he said, not looking at the food. Excuse me, your commute from Hammond to the warehouse. 35 minutes if traffic is good. 45 if it's not. You were never late in 7 years until your car started failing, and when it did, when you were 4 minutes past clock-in, they fired you. Maya's blood ran cold. How do you know that? He finally looked up at her, and there was something in his eyes she couldn't read. Guilt, pain. Because I looked you up. Maya Brooks, single mother, perfect employee, destroyed by a policy that counts minutes more than years. You looked me up. Her voice rose. The diner went quiet. Who are you? What do you want? My name is Jules, he said, and I want to offer you a job. The world tilted again, just like it had in the parking lot. Maya gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. A job, she repeated flatly. As a driver, my driver specifically. I need someone who knows Chicago, someone reliable, someone who can navigate traffic. He pulled out a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. The pay is 3 times what you were making at the warehouse. You'd have your own hours, benefits, and I'll provide the car. Maya stared at the card. Jules Thorne, it said. Logistics consultant, a phone number. Nothing else. Why? She asked. Why me? Because you're qualified. Because you deserve a second chance. Because... He stopped. Something flickered across his face. Because it's the right thing to do. I don't know you. No. But I'm offering you a legitimate job with legitimate pay. References available upon request. If you're interested, call that number. If not, I'll finish my meatloaf and you'll never see me again. He picked up his fork and started eating, effectively ending the conversation. Maya stood there, card in hand, mind reeling. This was insane. You didn't take jobs from strangers who tracked you down at diners. You didn't trust men in expensive suits who appeared out of nowhere, offering salvation. But then she thought about Noah, about his hopeful eyes when he asked if they could afford the school science fair project, about the stack of past due notices in her kitchen drawer, about the fact that her car was one breakdown away from becoming scrap metal, about the fact that pride didn't pay rent. She slipped the card into her pocket. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Maya returned to the register, her head spinning. Rosie gave her a long look but said nothing. The stranger, Jules, finished his meal in silence. He left a $100 bill for a $12 check, and before Maya could call after him, he was gone. Rosie picked up the bill, whistled low. I take it back. Men who tip like that can help all they want. But Maya was looking at the business card, running her thumb over the embossed letters. She needed this job. Noah needed her to take this job. But every instinct she had screamed that nothing was this easy, that there had to be a catch. She went home that night to her tiny apartment with the leaking faucet and the heating that only worked on Tuesdays. Noah was already asleep on her mother's couch, his homework spread out on the coffee table. Maya gathered him up, careful not to wake him, and carried him to the car. In the morning, she'd have to decide. Take the job and risk whatever trap it might be, or keep struggling, keep drowning, keep watching her son learn that hard work wasn't enough. But for now, she held her sleeping boy and pretended the decision was simple. The business card had lived in Maya's pocket for 5 days before she called the number. 5 days of double shifts and mounting bills, 5 days of Noah asking why she looked so tired, why they couldn't go to the movies like Tommy's family, why everything was always next time, baby. 5 days of her mother's worried eyes and her best friend Jen's increasingly desperate texts. 5 days of realizing that pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. She made the call on her 15-minute break, standing in the alley behind Rosie's, listening to it ring. "This is Jules." His voice was crisp, professional. Nothing like the man who'd stood in the rain fixing her car. "It's Maya Brooks, from the diner." A pause. "Thank you for calling. Are you interested in the position?" "I need to know more." "What exactly would I be doing?" "Driving me to meetings, appointments, and events. I'm a logistics consultant, which means I travel frequently around Chicago and the suburbs. My license was suspended, so I need reliable transportation." He said it smoothly, like he'd practiced. "Suspended for what?" "Too many speeding tickets. Poor judgment on my part." It sounded reasonable, almost too reasonable. "And the pay?" $75,000 annually, health insurance included. Hours are flexible around your schedule. You'd have access to a company vehicle for work purposes." 75,000. Maya's knees went weak. That was more than she'd made in 2 years at the warehouse. "That's too much. Drivers don't make that kind of money." "Good drivers do. Reliable ones. Ones who actually show up and know the city like the back of their hand." His voice was firm. "I checked your driving record, Maya. Not a single ticket in 14 years. You're exactly what I need." "You checked my driving record?" "Due diligence. If you're uncomfortable with that, I understand. But I'm offering you a legitimate opportunity. Take it or don't. The choice is yours." Maya closed her eyes. Every rational part of her brain said this was too good to be true. But the desperate part, the part that was so tired of fighting, whispered, "What if it's real? When would I start?" "Tomorrow, if you're available. I'll have the car delivered to your address." "How do you know my address?" "The same way I knew about your commute. Public records. I'm thorough, Maya. It's how I do business." She should hang up. She should tell him to leave her alone. But instead, she heard herself say, "Tomorrow, I'll try it for a week. If it doesn't work out, I walk away. No questions." "Fair enough. The car will be there at 7. Casual professional attire. First pickup is at 8:30. He gave her an address in Lincoln Park, the kind of neighborhood where the trees were actually maintained and the sidewalks didn't crack. Then he hung up, leaving Maya standing in the alley, wondering what she'd just agreed to. That night, she told Noah while helping him with his math homework. She kept it simple: a new job, better pay, driving for a businessman. "Will you be home more?" he asked, his pencil pausing over a subtraction problem. "I will, baby. More regular hours." "That's good." He went back to his homework, but his next words were quieter. "I miss you, Mom." The words cracked something inside her. "I miss you too." At 7 the next morning, a black sedan pulled up in front of her apartment building. Not a luxury car, but nice, clean, the kind of car that wouldn't break down every other week. The driver, a young man in his 20s, got out and handed her the keys. "Company vehicle, Mom. She's all yours. GPS is programmed with today's route. Fuel cards in the glove box." Then he walked away, leaving Maya standing on the curb, holding keys to a car she hadn't earned yet. She got Noah ready for school, dropped him at her mother's, and drove to the Lincoln Park address with her heart in her throat. The building was modern glass and steel, definitely expensive, but not ostentatious, the kind of place that whispered money rather than shouting it. She texted the number, "I'm here." He appeared 2 minutes later. Same expensive suit, different color, same grey eyes that seemed to see too much. He carried a leather briefcase and a travel mug of coffee. "Good morning," he said, sliding into the back seat. "There's a schedule in the front. We have 3 stops today." Maya adjusted the rearview mirror and caught his eye. He looked different in the morning light. Tired, maybe, or stressed. "Where to first?" "The address is in the GPS, financial district." She pulled into traffic, hyper-aware of his presence in the back seat. The car was nicer than anything she'd ever driven. The leather seats were soft. The dashboard had more buttons than she knew what to do with. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. Maya navigated the morning traffic with practiced ease, finding shortcuts between the gridlock. "You know the city well," he observed. "Born and raised, you learn the patterns. Valuable skill." More silence. Maya's hands were sweating on the steering wheel. This was so strange, so surreal. Yesterday, she was scraping ketchup off counters. Today, she was driving a man in a $1,000 suit to the financial district. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Of course. Why me? Really? There are professional driving services, people with credentials. Why track down a fired warehouse worker?" In the rearview mirror, she saw his jaw tighten. "Because professional services don't need the job. You do. So this is charity?" "No, this is fair compensation for fair work. If you're not good at the job, I'll fire you, but I think you will be good at it." They arrived at a gleaming office building. He got out, then leaned back in. "I'll be about an hour. Feel free to wait here or grab coffee. Just be ready when I text." He disappeared into the building, and Maya sat in the idling car, trying to process what was happening. An hour later, they were on to the next location. Then the next. Between stops, he worked on his laptop in the back seat, taking calls in a voice that was all business. Efficient, precise, cold, even. But when he thought she wasn't looking, she caught him staring out the window with an expression she couldn't read. Something like regret, something like pain. They didn't talk much. She drove, he worked, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was almost companionable. At the end of the day, he had her drop him at his building. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "Don't call me, sir. Jules is fine." He paused. "You did well today, Maya." "Thank you." Before she could respond, he was gone. Maya drove to pick up Noah, her mind spinning. The job was real. The money was real. But something about Jules, about the way he looked at her, about the way his hands had still carried faint motor oil stains. Something wasn't adding up. But when Noah climbed into the car and asked, "Is this our car, Mom, for real?" she pushed her doubts aside. "For work, baby." "But yes, I get to drive it every day." "It's so nice. Does it have seat warmers?" She laughed, the sound surprising even herself. "Let's find out." As they drove home, Noah chattering about his day, Maya caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked less tired, less defeated. Maybe, just maybe, this strange offer from a stranger in a parking lot was exactly what she needed, even if she didn't understand why he was offering it. What Maya didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that in his penthouse 40 stories above the city, Julian Thorne was standing at his window, looking out at the lights, his hand pressed to the glass. He'd spent the whole day watching her in the rearview mirror, watching her competence, her intelligence, her quiet strength, watching her be everything his spreadsheets had missed. And the guilt was eating him alive, because she didn't know who he really was. She didn't know that Jules was just Julian, with letters missing. She didn't know that he was the CEO of Thorne Logistics, the man whose signature had destroyed her life. She didn't know that every time she called him Jules with trust in her voice, it felt like a knife in his chest. But he couldn't tell her, not yet, because if she knew the truth, she'd leave. And he wasn't ready to lose whatever this was, this strange penance, this chance to be someone better than the man who counted minutes more than years. He'd started this to ease his guilt. But somewhere during that first day, watching her navigate traffic with skill and patience, hearing her laugh with her son on the phone, seeing her kindness to a homeless man they'd passed, somewhere in there it had stopped being about guilt, and that terrified him more than anything. 2 weeks into the job, Maya had fallen into a rhythm. Monday through Friday, she picked up Jules at 8:30, drove him to meetings across Chicago, waited while he conducted business she didn't understand, then dropped him at his building by 6. The pay appeared in her account every Friday, exactly as promised. $75,000 divided by 26 paychecks. Enough to breathe, enough to stop checking her bank balance with held breath. She'd paid her rent early for the first time in 3 years, bought Noah new shoes that actually fit, restocked the refrigerator without calculating every item. Small things, ordinary things, things that felt like miracles. But she still didn't understand Jules. He was unfailingly polite, never demanding, never demeaning. He said please and thank you like they mattered. When she'd had to bring Noah along one morning because her mother had the flu, he'd asked thoughtful questions about the boy's interests and listened to the answers. When traffic had made them late for a meeting, he'd simply said, "Not your fault," and made a phone call to reschedule. He wasn't like other wealthy men she'd encountered. No condescension, no assumption that his money made him superior. Just quiet competence and an intensity that sometimes made her uncomfortable, like he was studying her when he thought she wasn't looking. On a Thursday evening in late May, he broke their routine. "Change of plans for tonight," he said, as she drove him from his last meeting. "I need you to accompany me to a business dinner." Maya's hands tightened on the wheel. "Accompany you? Several clients are bringing their drivers. It's expected. You'll eat with the other staff, but I need you there afterward. The dinner's at my residence." His residence. Maya had dropped him there every day, but had never been inside. The building was modern and exclusive, the kind where doormen wore white gloves and probably earned more than she used to. "I'm not dressed for that," she said, looking down at her simple blouse and slacks. "You look fine. It's not formal." He paused. "But if you're uncomfortable, I can make other arrangements." She should say yes. She should tell him to find another driver for the evening, but something in his voice, some thread of hope or loneliness, stopped her. "What time?" "7. I'll have the doorman expecting you." When she arrived that evening, after dropping Noah at her mother's, the doorman did indeed expect her. He directed her to the 42nd floor with a politeness that somehow made her feel more out of place than rudeness would have. The elevator was mirrored and silent. Maya watched herself rise, floor by floor, into a world she didn't belong in. The doors opened directly into Jules's penthouse. She stepped into a space that made her breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan, the water dark and vast under the evening sky. The apartment was all clean lines and expensive minimalism, more art gallery than home. White walls, chrome fixtures, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Not a photograph, not a personal touch, just beautiful, cold emptiness. "Maya." Jules appeared from a hallway, and she tried not to stare. He wore a different suit, charcoal grey with a crisp white shirt, no tie. He looked younger somehow, less severe. "Thank you for coming. The others should arrive shortly. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Where should I wait?" He gestured toward the kitchen, which was all granite and stainless steel and probably cost more than her entire apartment building. "Catherine's in there, my caterer. She'll get you settled." Maya found Catherine, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and flour-dusted hands, arranging canapes on silver trays. "You must be the new driver," Catherine said warmly. "Lord knows it's about time he hired someone. That man works himself to death. Here, try one of these. Tell me if they need more salt." Maya accepted the small pastry, grateful for the kindness. "It's perfect." "You're sweet to lie. They always need more salt." Catherine winked. "You can wait in the staff area once the guests arrive. There's a television, comfortable chairs, nothing fancy, but better than standing around." The first guests arrived 10 minutes later. Maya heard their voices from the kitchen, cultured and confident. She busied herself helping Catherine, grateful for something to do with her hands. "Maya." Jules appeared in the doorway. "Could you come out for a moment? I'd like to introduce you." Her stomach dropped. "I'm fine here." "Please, just briefly." She followed him into the living room, acutely aware of her simple clothes, her work-worn hands, the gap between her world and this one. 6 people stood by the windows, champagne flutes in hand. They turned as Jules and Maya approached, and the assessment in their eyes was instant and unmistakable. Who is she? Why is she here? She doesn't belong. Everyone! This is Maya Brooks, my driver. Jules's voice was firm. Maya, these are clients, Robert and Jennifer Hayes, Charles Middleton, and Victoria. A woman stepped forward, and Maya's breath caught. She was stunning. Mid-40s, blonde, elegant in a way that money bought and breeding perfected. Her black dress probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary, and she wore it with the casual confidence of someone who'd never worried about price tags. Her eyes were blue and cold as they swept over Maya. Victoria Ashford, Jules said tightly, my ex-wife. The ex-wife smiled, and it didn't reach her eyes. Jules didn't mention he'd hired a driver. How lovely! And where did you two meet? A parking lot, Maya said before she could stop herself. My car broke down. He helped. How gallant! Victoria's smile sharpened. Jules does love a project, always trying to fix broken things. The words landed like a slap. Maya felt her face heat, felt the other guests' pitying glances. She was a broken thing to them, a charity case. Maya isn't a project, Jules said, his voice hard. She's an excellent driver with an impeccable record. I'm lucky to have hired her. Of course. Victoria sipped her champagne. I'm sure she's very capable. The way she said it made it sound like an insult. Maya? Jules turned to her, something apologetic in his eyes. You can wait in the staff area now. Thank you. She fled gratefully, her cheeks burning. In the kitchen, Catherine gave her a sympathetic look. Don't mind Victoria, she said quietly. That woman could find fault with Sunrise. Been trying to sink her claws back into Mr. Thorne for years, even though she's married to a senator now. Some people can't stand seeing others move on. Maya nodded, but the words still stung. A project, broken things. She waited in the staff room while the dinner progressed, trying to read on her phone, trying not to think about the laughter filtering from the dining room, about how easily she'd been dismissed, about how she'd been stupid to think, even for a moment, that she belonged anywhere near this world. Around 10, the guests began leaving. Maya heard their goodbyes, their air kisses, their promises to call. Then silence. She emerged to find Jules standing alone by the windows, his back to her, shoulders tense. You can go, he said without turning. I'll call a car service tomorrow. Did I do something wrong? No. He turned, and she was startled by the anger in his face. Not at her, she realized. At himself. I shouldn't have asked you to come. Victoria had no right to speak to you that way. She's right, though, isn't she? I am a project. You're not. He moved closer, and Maya caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and cedar-like. You're a talented driver who needed a job, and I needed a driver. That's all. Then why do you look at me like you're carrying the weight of the world? The question surprised them both. Jules's jaw tightened, and for a moment she thought he might actually answer, might tell her whatever truth he'd been hiding behind those grey eyes. Instead, he said, It's been a long day. Drive safely, Maya. She left, but his expression haunted her all the way home. There was something he wasn't telling her, something important, but she was too afraid to ask what it might be. The following Tuesday, everything changed again. Jules had asked her to pick up documents from what he called a storage facility near Hammond, not far from where she lived. It seemed odd that a logistics consultant would have storage in a working-class suburb, but Maya had learned not to question the inconsistencies in his story. Wealthy people were eccentric. They did strange things. When they pulled up to the address he'd given, though, it wasn't a storage facility, it was her apartment building. This is where I live, she said slowly. Jules looked genuinely surprised. Is it? What a coincidence. The unit number I need is 4C. Maya's apartment was 4B, right next door. Suspicion prickled up her spine, but she led him up the 3 flights of stairs, the carpet worn and stained, the walls dingy with age. She was acutely aware of him behind her, of what he must be seeing, the broken mailboxes, the smell of old cooking and mildew, the gap between his world and hers, made visible in peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. On the 4th floor, she stopped at 4C. The apartment had been empty for months, the tenant evicted for non-payment. There's nobody here, she said. Jules frowned, pulled out his phone. That's strange. Let me make a call. While he pretended to call, Maya unlocked her own door. Inside, she could hear her mother's voice and Noah's laughter. They must have stopped by early. Maya, dear, is that you? Her mother appeared in the doorway. Sarah Brooks was 62 and looked older, her face lined by factory work and worry, but her smile was warm, her eyes bright. I thought you'd be working. Noah and I made cookies. Well, he made cookies. I supervised. My last appointment was nearby. Maya was aware of Jules watching from the hallway. This is Jules, my employer. Jules, this is my mother, Sarah. Sarah's eyes sharpened with assessment, then softened with unexpected kindness. Any employer who gives my daughter steady work is welcome in our home. Won't you come in? We made extra cookies, and they're best warm. I couldn't impose nonsense. Maya, don't leave the man standing in the hallway like a door-to-door salesman. Before Maya could protest, Sarah had ushered Jules inside. The apartment was tiny, barely 600 square feet for a living room, kitchen, and 2 bedrooms the size of closets. The furniture was thrift store eclectic, the carpet worn, the walls thin enough to hear neighbors arguing. But it was clean, and Sarah had tried to make it homey with bargain store curtains and dollar store picture frames. Noah appeared from the kitchen, chocolate on his face. Mom, look. I made cookies without burning them this time. Oh, hi. He stopped, staring at Jules with wide eyes. Noah, this is Mr. Jules. Jules, my son, Noah. Jules knelt down to the boy's level, something Maya had never seen him do. His whole demeanor changed, softening. Noah, I've heard a lot about you. Your mom says you're interested in engineering. Noah's face lit up. I like to fix things. I'm working on a radio right now. It doesn't work yet, but I think I almost have it. Can I see? Noah grabbed Jules's hand without hesitation, leading him toward the corner of the living room where his workshop lived. A card table with scattered electronics, tools from the dollar store, and projects in various states of completion. Maya watched, something tight in her chest, as Jules examined Noah's work with genuine interest. He asked questions, listened to the answers, offered suggestions gently, never condescending. You've got good instincts, Jules said, pointing to a connection Noah had made. See this? Most adults wouldn't think to reroute it that way. That's innovative thinking. Noah glowed under the praise. Noah, don't monopolize our guest, Sarah called from the kitchen. Maya, come help me with the coffee. Jules, you sit down. You look exhausted. To Maya's surprise, Jules obeyed, settling onto their second-hand couch like it was natural. Noah continued showing him projects, chattering about circuits and resistance and all the things he'd taught himself from library books and YouTube videos. In the kitchen, Sarah poured coffee into mismatched mugs. He's good with the boy. It's his job to be polite. That's not politeness cake, sweetheart. That's genuine interest. I've been watching people for 62 years. I know the difference. Sarah handed her 2 mugs, and I see the way he looks at you. He doesn't. He does. Like you're water and he's been walking through a desert. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. He's my employer. I can't afford to lose this job. Sometimes the best things in life require a little risk. Maya carried the coffee out. Jules was on the floor now, helping Noah troubleshoot the radio, his expensive suit jacket draped over the couch arm, his sleeves rolled up. There was motor oil under his fingernails again, she noticed. He must work on cars in his spare time, this wealthy consultant who lived in a penthouse. "Try it now," Jules said. Noah flipped the switch. Static crackled. Then, faintly, a voice emerged. A radio station. Music. "I did it!" Noah's shout of joy made Maya's eyes burn. "Mum, I fixed it. It works!" Jules ruffled the boy's hair, and the gesture was so natural, so tender, that Maya had to look away. They stayed for dinner. It wasn't planned. Sarah simply started cooking, and before Maya could protest, there were 5 places set at their small kitchen table. Spaghetti with jarred sauce and garlic bread. Simple food, stretched to feed an unexpected guest. Jules ate like he'd never tasted anything better. Sarah told stories about Maya's childhood, embarrassing ones that made Noah laugh and Maya protest. Jules listened with an expression Maya couldn't read, something between longing and pain. When Noah mentioned his science fair project, Jules's attention sharpened. "What are you working on?" "A sorting machine. For recycling. It uses magnets to separate metal from plastic." Noah's enthusiasm bubbled over. "But I can't afford all the materials. Mom said maybe next year." "What if I helped?" Jules said. "I could supply the materials. Consider it an investment in future engineers." Maya opened her mouth to refuse. They didn't need charity, didn't need— "That would be wonderful," Sarah said firmly, giving Maya a look that brooked no argument. "Wouldn't it, Maya?" "We can't accept—" "Sure you can," Jules said, but he was looking at Noah, not her. "Every inventor needs investors. When you're a famous engineer someday, you can pay it forward. Deal?" Noah nodded solemnly, like they'd made a sacred pact. The evening ended with Sarah insisting Jules take home leftover cookies, Noah showing him every project one more time, and Maya feeling like her carefully controlled world had tilted off its axis. At the door, Jules paused. "Thank you for dinner. I can't remember the last time I had a home-cooked meal." "You're welcome any time," Sarah said, and meant it. In the car, driving him home, Maya finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind all evening. "Why did you really come here? There was no storage unit in 4C, was there?" Jules was quiet for a long moment. "No, I wanted to see where you lived. Understand your life better." "Why?" "Because I'm tired of only seeing people as numbers, as efficiency metrics and productivity ratios. Because you're a human being with a beautiful son and a kind mother and a life that matters. And I wanted to remember that." The words were strange, too revealing. Maya felt like she was seeing past the careful walls he'd built, glimpsing something raw underneath. "Jules, who are you really?" He looked out the window at the passing city. "Someone trying to be better than he was, that's all." It wasn't an answer, but it was something. When she dropped him at his building, he touched her hand briefly. "Thank you, Maya, for tonight, for letting me in." Then he was gone, and Maya sat in the car, her hand tingling where he'd touched it, her heart doing something dangerous in her chest. She was falling for him. For this strange, broken man who fixed radios with her son and ate spaghetti like it was a feast and looked at her like she mattered, and she had no idea what to do about it. Noah's science fair was on a Friday evening in early June. Maya had initially planned to go alone, but Noah had asked, with careful casualness, if Jules could come. "He's been helping me with the project, Mom. He brought all the materials, and he knows about circuits better than anyone. Can I invite him?" How could she say no to those hopeful eyes? So she'd called Jules, expecting him to make excuses. He was busy. He had meetings. He couldn't possibly— "What time?" he'd asked. Now they were walking through the school gymnasium together, Noah bouncing ahead in his carefully pressed shirt and his best jeans, his project carried like a treasure. Maya was acutely aware of the other parents staring, at Jules in his expensive suit, at her in her goodwill dress, at the disparity that marked them as not belonging together. But Jules seemed oblivious, his attention on Noah, asking questions about the competition, offering encouragement. They found Noah's assigned table. Other kids were setting up around them, their parents hovering with cameras and pride. Maya helped Noah arrange his sorting machine while Jules read the description card Noah had written in his careful, child's handwriting. "This is brilliant," Jules said quietly. "Noah, you're going to do amazing things someday." "You really think so?" "I know so." The look Noah gave him made Maya's heart ache. It was the look a son gave a father, trust and admiration and hope all mixed together. The judges came through. Noah explained his project with nervous energy, demonstrating how the magnets separated materials, how the collection bins worked, how it could help reduce contamination in recycling streams. The judges nodded, made notes, asked questions. Noah answered with growing confidence. When they moved on, Noah collapsed into his chair. "Did I do okay?" "You were perfect," Maya said, kissing the top of his head. "Better than perfect," Jules added. "You were professional. Confident. You explain complex ideas simply. That's a rare skill." They waited through the judging, wandering the other projects, Noah pointing out which ones were cool, which ones he didn't understand, which ones had better materials than his but less thought behind them. During the announcement ceremony, Noah won honorable mention in his age group, not first place, but recognition. When his name was called, he ran up to get his ribbon, then came straight back to them, hugging Maya first, then, after a hesitation, hugging Jules too. Jules's face did something complicated, like he was in pain and joy simultaneously. Like this simple hug from a child meant more than any business deal ever had. Outside, in the parking lot under the June evening sky, Noah ran ahead to tell another kid about his ribbon, leaving Maya and Jules alone for a moment. "Thank you for coming," Maya said. "It meant everything to him." "It meant everything to me." Jules's voice was rough. "I've closed $100 million deals, Maya, stood in boardrooms and commanded rooms full of powerful people. But watching Noah explain that project, seeing his face when he won, I've never been prouder of anything in my life. He's a good kid. He is. Because of you. Because you've raised him with love and values and taught him that what matters isn't what you have, but who you are." Jules turned to her, and there was something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Need. "You're an incredible mother, Maya, an incredible person, and I—" He stopped, shook his head. "What?" she whispered. "I need to tell you something, about who I really am, about why I hired you, about—" "Mom! Jules!" Noah came running back. "Tommy's dad said we can all go for ice cream. Can we, please?" The moment shattered. Jules stepped back, the walls slamming into place again. "I should go," he said. "Let you two celebrate." "No." The word came out sharper than Maya intended. "Please, come with us. Noah wants you there." "Maya, please." Something in her voice made him stop, made him look at her, really look at her, and whatever he saw there made his carefully controlled expression crack. "All right. Ice cream." They went to the diner near Noah's school, a cheerful place with sticky booths and 2 bright lights. Noah sat between them, talking non-stop about the science fair, the other projects, his plans for next year. Jules listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at Noah's jokes. Other families filled the booths around them, couples with children, families celebrating small triumphs. They fit right in, the 3 of them, and it felt so natural that it terrified Maya. This wasn't real. This was temporary. Jules had his secrets, his other life, his penthouse and ex-wife and world she'd never truly belonged to. This was just a moment, stolen from reality, but for those 2 hours she let herself pretend. When they returned to the parking lot, Noah, full of sugar and triumph, ran ahead to their car. Maya and Jules walked slower, the summer night soft around them. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, the materials, the encouragement, coming tonight. You didn't have to. I wanted to." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "Maya, I need you to understand something. This, tonight, being with you and Noah, this is the most real I've felt in 20 years. You make me remember that there's more to life than spreadsheets and efficiency. You make me want to be—" He cut himself off again, frustration crossing his face. "Want to be what?" "Someone worthy of that trust in Noah's eyes. Someone worthy of you." Maya's breath caught. They were standing close now, close enough that she could see the flecks of blue in his grey eyes, could feel the warmth of him in the cooling night. "Jules, I'm going to kiss you," he said quietly. "If you don't want me to, tell me now." Her heart was hammering. Every sensible thought in her head screamed at her to step back, to remember he was her employer, to protect herself and Noah from the inevitable hurt. But she didn't step back. Jules's hand came up to cup her face, gentle, asking permission with every movement. Then his lips touched hers, soft and careful, like she was something precious that might break. Maya made a small sound and kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, grew more urgent, 20 days of tension and attraction and unspoken feelings pouring into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jules pressed his forehead to hers. "Maya." "Mom?" Noah's voice, uncertain. "Are you guys coming?" They stepped apart quickly. Jules' face was flushed, his careful composure completely shattered. Maya probably looked the same. "Coming, baby," she called, her voice shakier than she wanted. She started toward the car, but Jules caught her hand. "Tomorrow," he said. "We need to talk, really talk, about everything." She nodded, unable to speak past the hope and fear warring in her throat. In the car, Noah chattered about ice cream flavors and science projects, oblivious to the way Maya's hands shook on the wheel, to the way her lips still tingled, to the way her whole world had just shifted on its axis. She'd kissed Jules, her employer. The man with secrets in his eyes and motor oil under his fingernails, and a life she didn't understand. And it had felt like coming home. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that across the city, in a sterile office with panoramic views, Chen was having a very different conversation. "You're playing with fire, Julian," Marcus said, his tone sharp with worry. "She's your employee. If this goes sideways, the liability alone—" "I don't care about liability." "Then care about her, when she finds out who you really are, when she discovers you're not Jules the consultant but Julian Thorne, CEO of the company that destroyed her life. What do you think will happen?" Julian stared out at the city lights, his hand pressed to the window. "I'll tell her. Tomorrow. I'll explain everything. And you think she'll understand? She'll forgive you?" "I don't know." His reflection in the glass looked haunted. "But I can't keep lying to her. Not after tonight. Not after that kiss." "That kiss was a mistake." "No." Julian turned, and there was something fierce in his face. "That kiss was the first honest thing I've done in months, maybe years. And tomorrow I'm going to be honest about everything else. And if she walks away—" The question hung in the air. Julian's jaw tightened. "Then I'll have lost the best thing that's ever happened to me, but at least I'll have told her the truth." Marcus sighed, defeated. "You're a fool, Julian, a rich, brilliant fool." "I know, but I'd rather be an honest fool than a wealthy liar." He left the office and returned to his penthouse, where he stood at the window until dawn, thinking about a woman who drove with skill and patience, about a boy who built sorting machines from dollar store materials, about the taste of a kiss that had felt like redemption. Tomorrow, he would tell her everything. Tomorrow, he would risk everything. And he had no idea if the truth would set him free or destroy the only happiness he'd known in decades. The conversation Maya and Jules were supposed to have the next day never happened. At 7:30 in the morning, her phone rang. Not Jules, but Patricia Donnelly, the executive assistant Maya had met briefly at the penthouse dinner. "Maya, I'm so sorry to call early." Patricia's voice was brisk but apologetic. "Jules had an emergency business situation come up overnight. He's asked if you can be available this evening instead. There's a charity gala at the Four Seasons, black tie. He needs you to accompany him." Maya's stomach dropped. Accompany him. Like a date. As his driver and guest. Several board members will be there with their significant others. It's important for appearances that he not arrive alone. Patricia paused. "He's asked me to arrange appropriate attire for you. If you're comfortable sharing your size, I'll have something delivered to your address by 3. This felt wrong. Too public. Too fast. They'd kissed last night, and now he wanted her at some society event. "I don't know if that's appropriate. Between you and me," Patricia said, her voice dropping, "he needs someone in his corner tonight. Victoria will be there with her senator husband. The vultures will be circling. You'd be doing him a real favor." The mention of Victoria decided it. Maya remembered the ice in that woman's eyes, the casual cruelty. If Jules needed support, she'd give it. "Okay, but, Patricia, what's really going on?" "That's not my story to tell, honey. But I will say this. You're good for him. I've worked for Julian Thorne for 20 years, and I've never seen him as human as he's been these past few weeks. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Julian Thorne. Maya's mind stumbled over the name. Patricia had said Jules, hadn't she? No, she'd said Julian. Maybe it was his full name. Julian Jules Thorne. "I'll be ready," Maya said. The dress arrived at 2:30. Maya opened the garment bag with trembling hands and gasped. It was midnight blue, simple but elegant, with a flattering cut that didn't feel too revealing or too matronly. Classic, tasteful. The kind of dress that whispered quality without shouting price tag. Matching shoes were wrapped in tissue paper. Understated jewelry that looked real but probably wasn't. Her mother, visiting with Noah, whistled low. Someone knows what they're doing. That dress was chosen by a woman, not a man. Patricia, his assistant. Smart man, having a woman pick it out. Sarah touched the fabric reverently. "This is beautiful, Maya. You're going to look like a princess. I'm going to look like I'm pretending to be something I'm not. You're going to look like exactly what you are, a beautiful, strong woman who deserves to be treated well." Sarah's face was firm. "Now get in the shower. We have work to do." By 7 o'clock, Maya barely recognized herself. Sarah had styled her hair into soft waves. The dress fit perfectly, skimming her figure in ways that made her feel elegant rather than exposed. The shoes were surprisingly comfortable. Noah stared at her with wide eyes. "Mom, you look like a movie star." "I look ridiculous." "You look beautiful," Sarah corrected. "Now go, have fun. And Maya, let yourself be happy. Just for one night." Jules was waiting in the lobby when she arrived. He wore a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine, but his face brightened when he saw her in a way that had nothing to do with clothes. "Maya." He took her hand, kissed it in a gesture that should have felt old-fashioned, but instead felt perfect. "You're stunning. It's the dress. It's you." His eyes held hers. "Thank you for coming. I know this isn't what we planned to do today, but I promise after tonight we'll talk about everything." in the limousine he'd hired for the evening. The silence between them hummed with unspoken words. Maya watched the city pass outside the window, her hand still tingling where he'd kissed it. "Jules, Patricia called you Julian earlier. Is that your full name?" His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Yes, Julian is my legal name. Jules is what friends call me. And I'm a friend." He turned to her, something raw in his face. "You're more than that. You have to know that by now." Before she could respond, the limousine pulled up to the Four Seasons. The lobby was a sea of tuxedos and evening gowns, champagne and diamonds, and the kind of wealth that Maya had only seen in movies. A photographer snapped pictures as they entered. Jules kept his hand on the small of her back, steady and protective. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "These events can be overwhelming." The ballroom was breathtaking, all crystal chandeliers and gold leaf and flowers that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes that looked like tiny works of art. Maya had never felt more out of place in her life. Jules introduced her to a blur of faces, names she'd never remember, titles she didn't understand. Everyone was polite, but she saw the calculation in their eyes. Who is she? Why is she here? She doesn't belong. Then Victoria arrived. She swept in on the arm of Senator Marcus Ashford, a silver-haired man who looked exactly like what Central Casting would send if you ordered powerful politician. But Maya only had eyes for Victoria, resplendent in red, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Julian, darling," Victoria air-kissed both his cheeks. "How lovely to see you. And Maya, wasn't it? The driver. What a surprise that you're here as a guest." "Maya is my date," Jules said firmly. "How progressive." Victoria's eyes glittered. "Marcus, this is Julian's new driver. She's accompanying him this evening." "Isn't that sweet?" The senator's handshake was perfunctory. "Charming." Other guests had gathered, drawn by the tension like sharks to blood. Maya felt their stares, their whispers. "I love your dress, Maya," Victoria said, her voice carrying. "Is it vintage? It has such a timeless quality, classic, not trendy. So wise when one is on a budget." It was a masterclass in insult, disguised as compliment. Maya felt her face heat. "The dress is perfect," Jules said, his voice cold. "Just like the woman wearing it." Of course, Victoria waved a dismissive hand. "I'm sure she's lovely, though I must say, Julian, I'm surprised. Usually, your charitable works are a bit more institutional. Building wings at hospitals, that sort of thing. Taking on individual projects is so much more complicated. What happens when the novelty wears off?" The implication was crystal clear. Maya was a project, a charity case, a novelty that would be discarded when Jules grew bored. "Victoria," Jules's voice was dangerously quiet. "That's enough. I'm just being honest, darling. Someone has to be. For her sake as much as yours. These sorts of arrangements rarely end well. The girl gets hurt when she realizes she was never really part of your world. Better to be clear about expectations from the start, don't you think?" Maya wanted to disappear, wanted to melt into the floor. Every eye in their vicinity was on her now, judging, pitying, dismissing. "Excuse me," she managed, and fled toward the restroom. In the marble sanctuary of the ladies' room, she gripped the sink and stared at her reflection. The beautiful dress, the borrowed jewelry, the carefully styled hair, all of it just costume, dressing up the same poor girl who'd cried in a broken-down car. Victoria was right. Maya didn't belong here, and eventually, Jules would realize it too. The door opened. Two women entered, elegant and sleek, their conversation already in progress. "Can't believe he brought her. His driver, for heaven's sake. I heard he met her in a parking lot. Probably some sob story. Julian Thorne has always had a savior complex. Remember when he tried to reform the public school system single-handedly? He thinks money solves everything. Maya stood frozen in the stall, invisible. Well, this one won't last. They never do. He'll get bored of playing White Knight, and she'll be back to wherever he found her. Poor thing probably thinks it's real. They left, laughter trailing behind them. Maya emerged on shaking legs. In the mirror, her face was pale, her carefully applied makeup not quite hiding the girl beneath. She returned to the ballroom, found Jules talking with a group of men in tuxedos, all business and authority. When he saw her, his face softened, and he immediately excused himself. "Are you all right? Victoria had no right. Can we leave?" The words came out smaller than she intended. "Of course, right now." "No, I mean, you should stay. This is important for your work." "I'll just take a cab home." "Absolutely not. If you're leaving, I'm leaving." His voice was firm. "Maya, I don't care about this gala. I don't care what Victoria or anyone else thinks. I care about you." He took her hand and walked toward the exit. Behind them, she heard the whispers start, felt the stares follow. At the entrance, Victoria intercepted them. "Leaving so soon? The evening's barely started." Jules's response was quiet, but carried to every ear nearby. "I'd rather spend 1 hour with Maya in a diner than a lifetime in a room full of people who value net worth over human worth." Victoria's perfect smile fractured. Jules walked them straight out the door, past the photographers, past the valet, past the world that was his and would never be Maya's. In the limousine, they sat in silence. Maya stared at her hands, at the borrowed jewelry that suddenly felt like shackles. "I'm sorry," Jules said finally. "I should never have asked you to come. I wanted to show you my world, but I forgot how cruel it can be. It's not your fault. Victoria's right, though. I don't belong there. You belong anywhere you choose to be. That's easy for you to say. You're one of them." "I'm not." His voice was rough. "I'm just better at pretending." They fell silent again. Maya felt the weight of the evening pressing down on her, all the stares and whispers and casual cruelty. She'd been stupid to think this could work, that she could ever be part of his world. Jules had the driver take them to her apartment. At the curb, he walked her to the door. "I'm still going to pay you for this evening," he said. "You worked. You deserve compensation." The words stung more than Victoria's insults. "I don't want to be paid for being humiliated." "Maya, that's not what I meant." "I know what you meant. Thank you for the dress, for trying. But this, whatever this is, it was a mistake." She turned to go inside, but he caught her arm gently. "Wait, please. Just give me a chance to explain. Tomorrow, let me tell you everything. The truth about who I am, why I hired you, all of it." "The truth," Maya laughed, but it came out bitter. "Jules, I don't even know if that's your real name. You have all these secrets, this whole life I don't understand, and tonight showed me that I never will. We're from different worlds. Worlds can be bridged by women in borrowed dresses who get pitied by your ex-wife." Jules looked stricken. "I don't pity you. I admire you. You're stronger and braver and better than anyone in that ballroom. But I'll never be one of them, and you'll always be one of them. That's just reality." She pulled away and went inside before he could see her cry. The next morning, Maya called in sick. She couldn't face him, couldn't sit in that car and pretend everything was fine. Patricia was understanding, said to take the day, rest. Maya spent it in pajamas, letting Noah watch too much television while she stared at nothing and tried not to think about grey eyes and borrowed jewelry, and the way Jules had looked at her like she mattered. Her phone rang a dozen times. Jules, every time. She didn't answer. Text messages appeared. "Please let me explain. I'm sorry about last night. You're more than my driver. You have to know that. Please, Maya, just talk to me." She turned off her phone. On Tuesday, she couldn't avoid it any longer. She showed up at 8:30, dreading the conversation they'd have to have. Jules slid into the back seat, looking as tired as she felt. "Thank you for coming. It's my job." "Maya, where to?" Her voice was professional, distant. He gave her an address in the financial district. They drove in painful silence. Between appointments, while he was in a meeting, Maya cleaned out the car. There were papers in the back seat pocket. She pulled them out to throw away, and one caught her eye. Letterhead, Thorn Logistics. Her hands froze. She pulled out another paper, a memo. Proposed efficiency initiative, fleet automation, draft recommendations for board approval. The language was corporate, cold. It outlined a plan to replace human drivers with automated vehicles, 500 employees to be terminated, cost savings calculated down to the cent. At the bottom, a signature. Julian Alexander Thorn, Chief Executive Officer. The world stopped spinning. Julian, not Jules. Julian Thorn, CEO of Thorn Logistics, the man who had fired her. Maya's hands shook as she pulled out more papers, board meeting notes, policy revisions, everything with that same signature. Julian A. Thorn, CEO. She thought of the termination letter crumpled in her glove compartment, the one she'd kept as a reminder of how quickly everything could fall apart. The signature on that letter and the signature on these memos were identical. Jules wasn't a logistics consultant. He was the man who destroyed her life, and he'd known, from the moment he'd seen that letter in her car, exactly who she was. Maya sat in the driver's seat, papers clutched in numb hands, and felt her entire reality reorganize itself around this new, horrible truth. The parking lot in the rain, his shock when he saw the letter, the job offer that came days later, the generous salary, his strange guilt, his questions about her life, his interest in Noah. None of it had been real. She'd been his redemption project, his way of easing guilt. His good deed to make himself feel better about the policy that had destroyed 68 lives. And she'd been stupid enough to fall for it, to kiss him, to let Noah bond with him, to believe, even for a moment, that someone like him could actually care about someone like her. The phone buzzed, a text from him. "Meeting running long, 20 more minutes." 20 minutes. She had 20 minutes to decide what to do with this information. Maya looked at the papers again. Saw the date on the automation memo. 2 weeks from now, another 500 people would lose their jobs while Julian Thorn added more zeros to his bank account. Decision made itself. She started the car, pulled out of the parking lot, and drove. 10 minutes later, her phone exploded with calls. She ignored them, drove west toward the highway, her mind blank with fury and grief. On the outskirts of the city, she finally pulled over at a rest stop. Got out of the car, stood in the summer heat, and tried to breathe through the crushing weight on her chest. The phone rang again. This time she answered, "Maya, where are you? What's happening?" His voice was frantic. "You're Julian Thorn." Her voice was eerily calm, silence, long and damning. "I found the memos in the back seat. The ones with your signature, CEO of Thorn Logistics. The man who fired me. Maya, please, let me explain." "You knew," the words cracked, "from the first moment in the parking lot, when you saw that termination letter, you knew you'd destroyed my life, and you said nothing." "I was going to tell you. I tried to tell you. When? After you'd slept with me, after Noah called you Dad. When exactly were you planning to mention that you're the reason I lost my job, my income, my stability?" "I wanted to fix it first. I wanted to make it right. By hiring me out of guilt, by playing dress-up with me at your fancy gala, by making my son love you." Her voice broke. "I'm not a project, Julian. I'm a person. And you treated me like something broken you could fix to make yourself feel better. That's not what happened. Maya, I fell in love with you." "Don't you dare!" The words came out savage. "Don't you dare tell me you love me when everything between us has been a lie." "Jules, That's what you told me to call you, Jules. Not even your real name, just close enough to feel honest while still being a lie. My friends call me Jules. That part was true. We're not friends. We were never friends. I was your employee, your charity case, your way to sleep at night after destroying lives with your precious zero-tolerance policy. She heard his breath catch. Good. She wanted him to hurt the way she was hurting. 4 minutes, she said, her voice shaking now. I was 4 minutes late because my car was dying and I couldn't afford to fix it. 7 years of perfect attendance meant nothing compared to your need for efficiency. And now I find out you want to fire 500 more people, replace them with machines so you can save money. That memo, I'm not going to implement it. I was going to reject it at the board meeting. How convenient. How noble of you. And I'm supposed to believe that, supposed to trust that you've suddenly grown a conscience. She laughed, and it came out broken. You watched me cry in that parking lot. You saw what your policy did to me. And instead of being honest, instead of taking responsibility, you created this elaborate fiction where you could play hero. I'm sorry, Maya, I'm so sorry. I know I should have told you from the beginning. But I was afraid if you knew who I was, you'd never give me a chance to make it right. You're right, I wouldn't have. Because some things can't be made right with money and job offers and borrowed dresses. You can't buy redemption, Julian. I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm trying to be a better person. You and Noah, you showed me what matters. You changed me. I didn't change you. I was a mirror that showed you what you'd become, and you didn't like what you saw. But that's not my job to fix. I'm not here to teach you how to be human. I'm here trying to survive, trying to raise my son, trying to keep my head above water, and you made everything harder. How? I gave you a job, good pay, stability. You made me fall for you. The words ripped out of her. You made me believe that someone could see past the poverty and the struggle and actually value me. You made Noah love you like a father. And now I have to go home and explain to my 8-year-old son that the man he trusted, the man who fixed his radio and came to his science fair, was lying the whole time. I wasn't lying about caring for Noah. That was real. All of it was real. Real. You want to talk about real. Real is crying in your car because you can't afford to fix it. Real is working double shifts and still not having enough. Real is watching your son pretend he doesn't want things because he knows you can't afford them. That's real, Julian. Your guilt, your redemption, that's just rich man problems. Silence. She could hear him breathing, could imagine his face, the pain in his grey eyes. Good, she thought viciously. Let him hurt. I'm getting out of the car now, she said. I'm leaving your keys on the seat. Consider this my resignation. I'll send you an invoice for hours worked this week. Maya, please, don't do this. Let me make it right. You can't make it right. That's what you don't understand. Some things are broken beyond fixing, and I'm done being your project. She ended the call, put the keys on the driver's seat, took her purse, and walked away from the beautiful car, the generous salary, the man who'd made her believe in fairy tales. There was a bus stop, half a mile down the road. Maya walked it in her sensible flats, the June sun beating down, tears streaming down her face. She'd been so stupid, so ready to believe that someone could want her, could care about her, could see her as more than just another struggling single mother. But she'd just been a line item on his conscience, a way to feel better about himself, a broken thing he could fix. Maya waited for the bus and promised herself she'd never be that stupid again. Behind her, in the abandoned car, Julian's phone lit up with a single text, but she was already gone. Julian stood in the parking lot where Maya had left his car, staring at the keys on the seat, and felt his carefully constructed world crumble to dust. He'd done this. He'd destroyed the best thing in his life through cowardice and lies, and the arrogant belief that he could control the narrative, manage the revelation, fix the problem before she ever had to know there was one. He'd treated Maya like a business deal, a problem to solve, an equation to balance, and he'd lost her. Julian drove himself back to the office, his hands shaking on the wheel. Walked past Patricia's shocked face, past Marcus's concerned questions, into his office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its view of a city that suddenly felt empty. He pulled up Maya's employee file, stared at her photo, her perfect attendance record, the termination date that lined up exactly with when he'd signed that policy. Zero tolerance, no exceptions. He'd been so proud of that policy, so certain it would increase efficiency, reduce costs, eliminate the human error factor. But humans weren't errors. They were people with children and bills and cars that broke down. They were Maya, crying in a parking lot, offering him her last $5 because pride mattered more than poverty. Julian opened his company dashboard, pulled up the list of terminated employees since the policy went into effect. 68 names, 68 lives disrupted. How many of them had children like Noah? How many had cried in parking lots? How many had lost more than just a job? His phone rang. Marcus. Julian, what's going on? Patricia said Maya quit. What happened? She found out who I am. A long pause. And she's gone. She called me out for every lie, every manipulation, every arrogant decision I've made. And she was right about all of it. What are you going to do? Julian looked at the dashboard. At the 68 names, at the automation memo still waiting for board approval, at the empire he'd built on the backs of people he'd never bothered to see as human. I'm going to tear it down, he said. Tear what down? Everything. Every policy, every procedure, every decision I've made that prioritize profit over people. I'm going to dismantle the machine I built. Julian, you can't be serious. The board will never approve. I don't care what the board approves. This is my company. I built it, and I'm going to rebuild it the right way, even if it costs me everything. And Maya, Julian closed his eyes. Maya's gone. I lost her. But maybe, if I actually become the man she believed I could be, she'll at least know that she changed me, that she mattered. He hung up, opened a blank document, and started writing. By dawn, he'd drafted new policies, employee profit sharing, family leave, childcare centers, tuition assistance. Everything he'd dismissed as inefficient when Marcus had suggested it years ago. By noon, he'd scheduled an emergency board meeting. By evening, he'd made a decision that would either save his company or destroy it. But for the first time in 20 years, Julian Thorne wasn't thinking about efficiency or profit margins or quarterly returns. He was thinking about a woman who'd offered him her last $5. About a boy who built sorting machines from dollar store materials, about what it meant to be human instead of just efficient, and about how much he'd give to have one more chance to tell Maya the truth, that she hadn't been his project. She'd been his salvation, even if he'd realized it too late. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Thursday. Julian arrived at 7, needing the quiet time before the storm. Patricia was already there, coffee made, documents printed and organized on the conference table. She'd been his assistant for 20 years. She knew him better than anyone. "You're really doing this," she said. "Not a question." "I am. They're going to fight you. Robert and Jennifer will call for your removal. Charles will threaten to pull his investment." "I know." Patricia studied him with sharp eyes that had seen him build this empire from nothing. "You look different, lighter somehow, even though you're about to blow up everything you've worked for. Because for the first time in 20 years, I'm doing something that matters more than profit margins." Julian met her gaze. "I lost Maya, Patricia. I lost her because I was a coward who built a company on cruelty and called it efficiency. I can't get her back. but I can make sure no one else suffers the way she did. She might forgive you, you know. If she sees this, she won't, and I don't blame her, but that's not why I'm doing it." He picked up the stack of new policies he'd drafted. "I'm doing it because it's right. Because 68 people lost their jobs under a policy that valued seconds over service. Because 500 more were about to. Because I forgot that companies are made of people, not numbers." Patricia's eyes were suspiciously bright. "Your mother would be proud." Julian's throat tightened. His mother, who'd worked herself to death trying to compensate for his father's failures, who'd never complained, never given up, never stopped trying. I hope so. By 9, the boardroom was full. 12 people who'd invested millions in Thor logistics, who'd watched Julian build an empire, who expected returns, not sentiment. Julian stood at the head of the table and felt oddly calm. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. I've called this meeting because I'm implementing immediate policy changes that will affect our operational structure and profit margins." Robert Hayes leaned back in his chair, already skeptical. "What kind of changes?" "First, the zero-tolerance attendance policy is terminated, effective immediately. It's being replaced with a graduated warning system that takes into account employee history and circumstances." Silence. Then murmurs of confusion. "Second, I'm implementing profit sharing for all employees who've been with us more than 2 years. They helped build this company. They deserve to share in its success." The murmurs grew louder. "Third, we're establishing on-site childcare centers at all major facilities, subsidized, available to any employee, regardless of position." "Julian, this is insane," Charles Middleton started. "Fourth, comprehensive family leave, paid, for mothers and fathers, for adoption, for illness, for family emergencies. You're talking about millions in costs. Fifth, tuition assistance for employees' children. We're establishing the Noah Brooks Scholarship Fund for young people interested in engineering and innovation." Jennifer Hayes was shaking her head. "Julian, where is this coming from? These programs will cut into our quarterly returns." Our investors, Julian said, his voice sharp now, "have made considerable profits from a company that treated employees as disposable. That ends today. You can't unilaterally—" "Actually, I can. As majority shareholder and CEO, these operational decisions fall under my authority. You're welcome to vote to remove me, but these policies stand." Robert stood, face flushed. "This is because of that woman, isn't it? The driver. You're blowing up a billion-dollar company over some girl." Julian's hands curled into fists. "Her name is Maya Brooks, and she's not some girl. She's a woman who worked for this company for 7 years, with perfect attendance until her car started failing. We fired her for being 4 minutes late, 4 minutes after 7 years. That policy has my signature on it. And I'm ashamed of that signature. Julian, I'm ashamed," he continued, voice rising, "that I built a company that values efficiency over humanity, that treats people as expendable, that fires loyal employees for being 4 minutes late while I arrive 30 minutes late to meetings, and no one says a word because I'm the CEO. The hypocrisy ends now." He pulled out the automation memo. "This was drafted by our operations team. It recommends replacing 500 drivers with automated vehicles, $500,000 in cost savings, 500 people out of work, 500 families disrupted. And for what? So we can add another decimal point to our profit margin." Julian tore the memo in half. "I won't do it. I won't destroy lives for profit anymore. If that makes me a bad CEO, so be it. Fire me. But I won't be the man who values dollars over dignity." The room erupted. Voices overlapping, arguing, demanding. Julian stood still in the center of the chaos and felt something break open in his chest. Not despair, release. When the noise finally died down, Marcus Chen spoke. "I stand with Julian." Every head turned. "I've been his CFO for 15 years, Marcus said calmly. "I've watched him build this company through brilliance and determination, but I've also watched him become someone I barely recognized. Someone who measured success in profit margins instead of people served. These changes, they're not weakness, they're strength, they're leadership, and I'm proud to support them." Patricia stepped forward from her position by the door. "I'm 58 years old. I've worked for Julian Thorne for 20 years. In that time, I've seen him make countless brilliant business decisions. But these," she gestured to the new policies, "these are the first wise decisions I've seen him make. I stand with him too." Two other board members, younger executives who'd come up through the ranks, nodded slowly. "We're in." Robert Hayes stood. "Then I'm out. I didn't invest in a charity. I invested in a business. Jennifer, Charles, Juice, we should walk." They did. 4 board members, representing nearly 40% of outside investment, walked out of the meeting. The door closed behind them. Julian looked at the remaining 8 people. "There will be consequences to this," he said quietly. "Financial consequences, media scrutiny, possible lawsuits from the departing investors. If any of you want to reconsider, I understand." No one moved. Marcus smiled. "Let them sue. We'll be too busy building something better." The meeting continued. They drafted press releases, planned implementation, discussed how to communicate the changes to employees. It wasn't easy. There were hard questions about logistics and timing and cost management, but for the first time in years, Julian felt like he was building something worth having. When everyone finally left, Patricia lingered. "You should tell her," she said. "Tell Maya what you did. She doesn't want to hear from me." "Maybe not, but she deserves to know." Patricia handed him a folder. Her address, her mother's number, her best friend Jennifer Martinez's contact information. "I took the liberty." Julian held the folder, but didn't open it. "What if she still doesn't forgive me? Then you'll have done the right thing for the wrong reasons, which is still better than doing the wrong thing. But Julian, she cared about you, really cared. That doesn't just disappear." That evening, Julian drove to Maya's apartment. His hands were shaking as he climbed the stairs. The building looked different now that he knew it was her home, not just an address in a file. He saw the children's toys in the hallway, the neighbor's door decorated with a homemade wreath, the sounds of life behind thin walls. He knocked on 4B. Sarah Brooks answered. Her face went hard when she recognized him. "You've got nerve showing up here." "I know. I brought something for Maya. She doesn't want to see you. She's been crying for 3 days straight." "My daughter, who never cries, who survived more hardship than you can imagine, has been breaking down because she trusted you and you lied to her." Each word was a knife. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix broken hearts, Mr. Thorne, or is it Mr. Jules, or whoever you are today? It's Julian. My name is Julian Alexander Thorne, and I know sorry isn't enough, but I want Maya to know that I'm changing things, the company, the policies, everything that hurt her and 67 other people." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "She found out about the board meeting. Patricia called her, told her what you did." Hope flared. "She did?" Maya listened. Then she hung up and cried harder. "Because you, being a better person, doesn't change what you did, doesn't change that you lied." Julian nodded, throat tight. He handed Sarah the folder he'd brought. "These are the new policies, implementation plans." And on the last page, details about the Noah Brooks Scholarship Fund for children of employees who show promise in science and engineering. I wanted to name it after him because he represents everything I lost sight of. Curiosity, innovation, hope. Sarah took the folder, her eyes scanning the documents. Her face changed as she read. "This is real. All of this. Every word. I'm dismantling everything I built wrong so I can rebuild it right. Because of Maya. Because of Maya, because of Noah, because I finally looked in a mirror and hated what I saw. Julian's voice cracked. I love your daughter, Mrs. Brooks. I love her strength and her dignity, and the way she never gave up even when everything was falling apart. I love her son's brilliant mind and kind heart. And I destroyed any chance I had with them because I was a coward who thought he could fix things with money instead of truth. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Julian Thorne, you broke my daughter's heart. And if you're doing all this just to win her back, it won't work. Maya's too smart for grand gestures. I'm not trying to win her back. I lost that right. I'm trying to be worthy of what she tried to teach me, that people matter more than profits. That 4 minutes doesn't define 7 years, that the only real wealth is human connection. He met Sarah's eyes. She changed my life. She saved my life. Even if she never speaks to me again, I want her to know that. Sarah's stern expression cracked. Come in, just for a minute. The apartment was the same as he remembered. Small, worn, but filled with life. Photos on the walls, Noah's homework on the kitchen table, Maya's uniform hanging by the door. She's not here, Sarah said. She's at work, picked up a double shift at the diner. Julian's heart sank. Back at Rosie's. Where else? Bills don't stop coming just because your heart's broken. Sarah gestured to the couch. Sit. I'll make coffee. They sat together in the tiny living room, drinking instant coffee from mismatched mugs. And Sarah told him about Maya's week. The crying, the anger, Noah's confusion about why Jules wasn't coming around anymore. The way Maya held herself together during the day and fell apart at night. She loved you, Sarah said simply. Not your money, not your company. You. The man who fixed her car in the rain, the man who taught Noah about circuits, the man who ate her spaghetti like it was a 5-star meal. That's who she loved, and that man turned out to be a lie. He wasn't a lie. Jules is who I am with people I care about. Julian is who I became when I forgot how to care. Then you need to figure out which one you want to be, because my daughter deserves someone whole, someone honest, someone who won't treat her like a project to make himself feel better. I know. Julian set down his mug. Tell her about the policies, about the changes. Not because I want forgiveness, but because she deserves to know that her anger, her accusations, her walking away made a difference. She saved 68 people's jobs. She protected 500 more. She changed an entire company because she had the courage to call me out on my failures. Sarah nodded slowly. I'll tell her. But Julian, don't come back here. Let her heal. Let her decide if and when she wants to contact you. Respect her enough to give her that choice. I will. He left the folder of policies on the coffee table and walked back to his car, feeling emptier and fuller simultaneously. Maya didn't see the folder until 2 days later. She'd been avoiding her mother's place, avoiding questions, avoiding the pity in everyone's eyes. But Noah needed help with homework, and her apartment didn't have Wi-Fi, so she'd finally given in. The folder was sitting on the coffee table like an accusation. What's this? She asked. Look at it, Sarah said. Maya opened it reluctantly, scanned the first page. New attendance policies, progressive discipline, consideration for circumstances. The next page, profit-sharing programs, employee ownership. The next, childcare centers, family leave. She kept reading, her hands shaking, until she reached the last page, the Noah Brooks Scholarship Fund for Children of Thorne Logistics employees, $500,000 initially funded. Ongoing contributions from company profits. Named after your son, Sarah said softly. Maya's vision blurred. When did this happen? Thursday, emergency board meeting. He dismantled his own policies in front of the board. Patricia called to tell you about it. Remember? I remember hanging up on her. 4 board members walked out, took their investments with them, cost him millions He didn't care. He did it anyway. Maya sank onto the couch, the folder heavy in her lap. Why would he do this? Because you were right. Because he was wrong. Because sometimes people actually change. Sarah sat beside her. Patricia came by yesterday. Wanted to talk to you personally. I told her you weren't ready, but I listened. The company's transforming, Maya. Real changes. Employees are being rehired. Policies are being rewritten, all because one woman had the courage to walk away and tell a powerful man the truth he didn't want to hear. This doesn't change what he did. The lying? No, it doesn't. But it means he's trying to be the man you thought he was. Sarah took Maya's hand. Honey, I'm not saying you should forgive him. That's your choice. But I am saying he's doing more than apologizing. He's making amends. There's a difference. Maya stared at the scholarship fund page, $500,000, named after Noah, not because Julian was trying to buy forgiveness, but because Noah represented hope, innovation, the future. I'm still so angry, she whispered. You have every right to be. He lied to me. Yes, he made me fall for him under false pretenses. Yes. So why does part of me want to call him? Sarah smiled sadly. Because love doesn't disappear just because trust breaks. It just gets complicated. That night, Maya lay in bed unable to sleep. She kept thinking about the folder, about Julian standing in front of his board, tearing up memos, defending employees he'd never met, about him naming a scholarship after her son, about grey eyes full of guilt and hope, about hands stained with motor oil, fixing her car in the rain, about the man who'd taught Noah about circuits and eaten spaghetti like it was precious and looked at her like she'd hung the moon. Had that man been real, or had it all been performance? Her phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, her best friend. Girl, you need to see this. Come by the diner tomorrow. Everyone's talking about Thor logistics. It's all over the news. Maya texted back, What news? Just come. You'll see. The next morning, Maya walked into Rosie's diner and found it buzzing with unusual energy. Customers were showing each other their phones. Rosie was watching the small TV behind the counter, shaking her head in disbelief. Maya! Jennifer grabbed her arm. Did you see about your old company? See what? Jennifer pulled up an article on her phone. The headline read, Billionaire CEO revolutionizes company culture. Efficiency without humanity is just cruelty. Below it, a photo of Julian at a press conference, looking tired but determined. Maya scanned the article. It detailed the policy changes, the board members who'd left, the estimated cost to quarterly profits. It quoted employees celebrating the reforms. It mentioned the Noah Brooks Scholarship Fund, and at the end, a paragraph that made Maya's breath catch. When asked what prompted these dramatic changes, Thorne simply stated, Someone I care about showed me that I'd built a company that measured success in dollars instead of dignity. She was right. And it's time to do better. Thorne declined to elaborate, but sources close to the CEO suggest he's referring to a former employee he'd fired under the now-defunct zero-tolerance policy. That's you, Jennifer whispered. You're the someone. Maya, you changed an entire company. Maya couldn't speak. Around the diner, people were talking. My cousin works at Thorn Logistics. She was about to get fired for taking a day off when her kid was sick. They reinstated her with an apology. I heard they're hiring back everyone who was terminated under that stupid policy. My nephew got a call. They want him back, with back pay for the time he was out. Thorne himself called my sister, apologized personally, said what happened to her was unconscionable. The conversation swirled around Maya like a storm. She stood in the center of it, holding Jennifer's phone, staring at Julian's face in the photo. He'd done it. He'd actually done it, not quietly behind the scenes where it wouldn't cost him anything, but publicly, expensively, in a way that would haunt his business reputation for years. He'd chosen humanity over efficiency, people over profit. "That man loves you," Rosie said, appearing beside her with coffee. "Only love makes a person that stupid with money. It's not about me. It's about doing the right thing. Honey, people don't burn their own empire down to do the right thing unless someone lights the match. You lit his match. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" Maya didn't know, but 6 weeks later, she still didn't have an answer. 6 weeks of Julian respecting her boundaries, not showing up, not calling, letting her heal. 6 weeks of seeing the changes ripple through the community. Former Thorn Logistics employees stopping her to say thank you, like she'd personally saved their jobs. News articles about the company's transformation. Industry analysts debating whether Thorn's reforms would succeed or bankrupt him. 6 weeks of Noah asking when Jules was coming back, of Maya not having an answer. Then Patricia called. "Maya, I know you don't want to hear from anyone connected to Julian, but I wanted you to know about the new Employee Resource Center. It's opening next week. I thought you might want to bring Noah to see it. The engineering workshop for kids is something special." "Patricia, I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm not even asking you to see him. I'm just saying your son would love this place, and you deserve to see what your courage created." Against her better judgment, Maya agreed. The following Tuesday, she drove Noah to Thorn Logistics for the first time since she'd been fired. The building looked the same from outside, but the moment they walked through the doors, everything was different. The reception area had been transformed. Comfortable seating, a play area for children, photos on the walls, not of executives, but of employees, real people, smiling, working, living. A young woman at the desk recognized Maya immediately. "Miss Brooks, Patricia said you were coming. Welcome. The resource center is on the 3rd floor. They rode the elevator up. The doors opened to reveal a space that took Maya's breath away. It was bright and open, with different areas clearly marked. Childcare center, health clinic, study spaces, computer labs. And in the corner, a workshop filled with tools and materials and children bent over projects while adult mentors guided them. "Mom," Noah breathed, "is this real?" "I think so, baby." A woman approached. Late 50s, warm smile, wearing a name tag that said Director, Employee Services. "You must be Maya and Noah. I'm Catherine. Patricia told me you were coming." "Noah, would you like to see the engineering workshop? We have a project today building simple motors." Noah looked at Maya with pleading eyes. She nodded. He ran off with Catherine, leaving Maya standing alone in this impossible place. "He's brilliant, you know." The voice came from behind her. "Patricia. Julian talks about him all the time, about his curiosity, his determination, his kind heart." Maya turned. Patricia looked older, more tired, but there was satisfaction in her face. "This is real?" Maya asked. "All of it?" "Every square foot. Funded personally by Julian after the board refused to allocate money for it. He's not living in the penthouse anymore. Sold it. Moved to a modest condo. Said he didn't need 42 floors when his employees were struggling in studio apartments." Maya's heart twisted. "Patricia, why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to see what your words created. You told him he built a company on cruelty, so he's rebuilding it on compassion. You told him people matter more than profits, so he's investing in people. You walked away because he lied. So he's being aggressively, painfully honest even when it costs him. It doesn't change what he did. No, it doesn't. But it means he listened, really listened. Not many powerful men do that." Patricia handed her a visitor badge. "Tour the facility, see what you changed, then decide if someone who's actually transforming themselves deserves another conversation, not forgiveness. Just a conversation." She left Maya standing there, badge in hand, surrounded by the physical evidence of change. Maya walked through the center slowly, met employees who stopped her to say thank you. Saw the childcare center where working parents could leave their kids safely. Saw the tutoring spaces where children did homework while their parents finished shifts. Saw the health clinic offering free basic care. She ended up in a quiet hallway lined with photos. Employee stories, before and after. People who'd been fired under the zero-tolerance policy and had been rehired, their faces, their words, their gratitude. And at the end of the hallway, a single framed document, the original zero-tolerance policy, with a red line through it, and beneath it the words, "We did better, because someone had the courage to tell us we could." Maya stood in front of that frame and cried. "Mom!" Noah appeared beside her, his face flushed with excitement. "Mom, I built a motor, it works. Catherine said I have real talent. She said I can come back every week if I want. Can I?" Maya wiped her eyes. "We'll see, baby. Jules would want me to come. He'd be so proud." Noah's face fell. "I miss him, Mom. Is he ever coming back?" Before Maya could answer, a voice spoke from behind them. "I miss you too, Noah." Maya turned. Julian stood at the end of the hallway, and he looked different, thinner, tired. But there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before, peace, maybe, or purpose. "Jules!" Noah ran to him, and Julian caught him in a hug that looked like it hurt in the best way. "Hey, buddy! I heard you built a motor today." "I did, it's so cool. Did you know that electromagnetic induction can create rotational force?" Catherine explained it, and it made so much sense. "That's brilliant. You're going to be an amazing engineer someday." Noah beamed. Then his face got serious. "Why did you go away? Did I do something wrong?" "No, absolutely not." Julian knelt down to his level. "You didn't do anything wrong. I did. I lied to your mom about who I was, and lying is never okay, even when you're scared of telling the truth, especially then. But you're here now. I came to show your mom the resource center, to let her see what changed because she was brave enough to tell me the truth." Julian looked up at Maya, and his eyes were full of things she couldn't name. "Your mom is the strongest person I know." Noah looked between them. Child's intuition reading what adults tried to hide. "Are you guys going to talk? Like adult talk where I can't hear?" Despite everything, Maya almost smiled. "Maybe. Can I stay in the workshop? Catherine said there's a soldering project next." Julian nodded. "If it's okay with your mum." "Go ahead, baby. I'll come get you in a bit." Noah ran off. And then it was just Julian and Maya in the quiet hallway, standing in front of a cancelled policy that represented everything that had broken between them. "You came," Julian said softly. "I didn't think you would. Patricia can be persuasive. She's good at her job." He gestured around them. "What do you think?" "I think it's incredible. I think it's more than I ever imagined. I think you did what I didn't believe you could do. I proved you wrong. You proved me right. I told you people could change. You're proving it." Julian took a careful step closer. "Maya, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I hurt you and broke your trust and lied when I should have been honest. But I want you to know something. You weren't my redemption project. You were the person who held up a mirror and made me see what I'd become, and I didn't like what I saw. So you changed the company. I changed myself. The company just followed." His voice was rough with emotion. "I grew up with an alcoholic father who couldn't hold a job or keep a promise. My mother worked herself to death trying to compensate. I swore I'd never be like them, never be chaotic or unreliable or weak, so I became the opposite, rigid, controlled, efficient, but I became just as destructive in my own way. Julian, let me finish, please." He took a shaky breath. "You and Noah showed me what I'd lost. Warmth, humanity, connection, the ability to see people instead of metrics. And when you walked away, when you told me I couldn't buy redemption, you were right. But you also showed me that redemption isn't about what you buy. It's about what you build." Who you become, the world you create. Maya's eyes were burning. Why did you really hire me? The truth. Because I saw that termination letter and realized I'd destroyed your life with a policy I'd signed without thinking about the consequences. Because I was drowning in guilt and didn't know how to fix it. Because I thought if I could just help you, pay you well, make your life easier, then maybe I could sleep at night. He met her eyes. That's how it started. That's the ugly truth. I hired you to ease my guilt. The honesty hurt, but it was clean pain, real. And then I got to know you, your intelligence, your strength, the way you navigated the city like you'd memorized every street, the way you loved Noah so fiercely, the way you offered me $5, even though it was probably all you had, because dignity mattered more than pride. His voice cracked. You stopped being my redemption project and became the person I looked forward to seeing every day, the person who made me laugh, the person who made me want to be better. You lied to me about who you were. I did. I was a coward. I convinced myself I was waiting for the right time, but really I was just afraid of losing what we were building. Afraid you'd look at me the way you did when you found out, like I was the villain in your story. You were the villain in my story. I know. But Maya, I'm trying to be the hero in a different story. The one where a man realizes he's been destroying lives and chooses to rebuild. Where someone who measured success in profit margins learns to measure it in human dignity. Where a billionaire falls in love with his driver. She said it quietly, not quite a question. Where a fool falls in love with a woman who's 1,000 times better than he deserves. And even though he knows he can never make up for what he did, he tries anyway, not to win her back, but because she taught him that trying is what matters. They stood there, inches apart, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down. I don't know if I can trust you again, Maya whispered. I don't know either. But I'll spend every day proving I'm trustworthy. Not with words, with actions, with transparency, with being the man I was when I fixed your car in the rain. That man was real, Maya. He was just buried under 20 years of fear and control. Julian, I love you. I love your strength and your dignity, and the way you never gave up even when everything was falling apart. I love that you taught Noah to value kindness over things. I love that you walked away from money because your self-respect mattered more. And I love that you stood in front of me and told me exactly what I'd become, even though it meant losing a job you desperately needed. Maya's tears were falling freely now. You broke my heart. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You made Noah love you and then disappeared. I stayed away because your mother asked me to, because you deserved space to heal. But God, Maya, I've missed you both so much. She reached up and touched his face, and he closed his eyes like her touch was painful and precious simultaneously. Show me your hands, she said. Confused, he held them out. They were clean now, executive hands, manicured and professional. The motor oil, she said. It's gone. I haven't had time to work on cars. I've been working here, on this. He gestured to the resource center. You sold the penthouse. It was obscene, 4,200 square feet for one person, while families of 4 lived in 400. I moved to a 2-bedroom condo. It's enough. Patricia said you funded this personally. The board wouldn't authorize it, so I did, use the money from selling the penthouse and half my annual salary. It's a start. Maya studied him, saw the exhaustion, the weight he carried, the genuine transformation. This wasn't performance. This was painful, costly change. I'm still angry, she said. You should be. I'm still hurt. I know. But I also see what you've done, what you're doing. And Julian, she smiled through her tears. I'm proud of you. His face crumpled. Maya, I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying we can go back to what we had, but I'm saying I see you trying. I see you being the man I believed you could be. And that matters. Can we start over, not as employer and employee, not with lies or secrets, just as two people who care about each other despite everything? Yes. Maya thought about Noah in the workshop, building motors with joy on his face, thought about the employees who'd thanked her, their lives changed by one man's transformation, thought about Julian's grey eyes, full of hope and fear and love. Coffee, she said. Start with coffee. As friends, and we'll see where it goes from there. Just coffee, with brutal honesty. No secrets, no lies, just two people talking. I can do that. Julian's smile was tentative, but real. When? Saturday? 2 o'clock. The diner near Noah's school, not Rosie's, somewhere neutral. I'll be there. They stood there, not quite together but not quite apart, and something fragile and hopeful grew between them. Behind them, Noah appeared, covered in solar marks and grinning. "Mom, Jules, I made a circuit board. Want to see?" Julian and Maya looked at each other, and the same thought passed between them. Whatever happens between us, we protect this child. We don't hurt him again. "We'd love to see it, buddy," Julian said. And as Noah led them back to the workshop, chattering about resistance and current and possibility, Maya felt something in her chest unknot. Just a little, just enough. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a destination. Maybe it was a journey. And maybe, just maybe, it was one worth taking. One careful step at a time. The coffee on Saturday became coffee every Saturday for 3 months. They met at the same diner, the one with the cracked vinyl booths and the waitress who knew everyone's order by heart. Neutral ground, safe ground. A place where billionaire CEOs and single mothers could sit across from each other and just be two people trying to figure out if broken things could be mended. The first few meetings were careful, polite. They talked about Noah's progress in the engineering workshop, about changes at Thor Logistics, about Maya's shifts at Rosie's and her plans to maybe, someday, go back to school. They didn't talk about the kiss. They didn't talk about feelings. They were two acquaintances sharing coffee and conversation, nothing more, except it was more. It had always been more. By the second month, the conversations grew easier. Julian told her about his childhood, about watching his mother work herself to exhaustion, about his father's broken promises. Maya told him about Noah's father, about the shame and fear of being pregnant and alone, about rebuilding her life from nothing. They were honest in ways they'd never been before. No secrets, no pretense, just truth, even when it hurt. "I see a therapist now," Julian admitted one Saturday in late September. "Twice a week. Patricia insisted after I nearly had a breakdown during a board meeting. What happened? I was presenting quarterly reports, and suddenly all I could see were faces. Not numbers. People. Families. Lives affected by every decision. I started crying in front of 12 board members." He laughed, but it was self-deprecating. "Not my finest moment. That sounds like growth to me. My therapist says I'm learning to feel things I suppressed for 20 years. It's uncomfortable." "Feelings usually are." Maya stirred her coffee. "I started seeing someone too. Sarah insisted. Said I needed to process the trust issues, not just bury them." "And is it helping?" "I think so. I'm learning that trust isn't all or nothing. It's built in small moments, consistency over time, words matching actions." Julian met her eyes. "I want to be consistent for you, Maya. I want my actions to match my words, every single day." "I know. I can see you trying." By the 3rd month, Noah started joining them sometimes. Julian never pushed for it, never assumed he was welcome, but when Maya texted, "Noah wants to know if Jules can come to his birthday party," Julian's response was immediate. "I'd be honored." The party was small, held at Sarah's house because the apartment was too cramped. Noah's friends from school, a few neighbors. Sarah's church friends who'd known Noah since he was born. Julian arrived with a carefully chosen gift, a professional-grade soldering kit with safety equipment and a book on basic electrical engineering. Noah's face lit up like Christmas. "This is the one I wanted. Mom said maybe next year, but this is perfect." "Well, next year you can ask for something even better," Julian said, ruffling his hair. Maya watched them together, Julian helping Noah set up the soldering station, explaining safety protocols with patience and care, and something in her chest eased. This wasn't performance. This was genuine love for a child who wasn't his. Later, after the cake and presents, after Noah's friends had been picked up by their parents, Julian helped clean up while Noah showed his grandmother his gifts. "Thank you for inviting me," he said, scraping paper plates into the trash. "Noah wanted you here. I couldn't say no." "What about you? Did you want me here?" Maya looked at him. This man who'd once fired her for 4 minutes and now stood in her mother's kitchen doing dishes. "Yes, I wanted you here too." The smile that crossed his face was worth everything. That night, after Julian had left and Noah was tucked into bed, Sarah pulled Maya aside. "That man loves you both something fierce." "I know. And you love him." Maya didn't deny it. "I do, but I'm scared, Mom. What if he hurts us again? What if he doesn't? What if you're so busy protecting yourself from potential pain that you miss actual joy?" Sarah cupped her daughter's face. "Sweetheart, I watched him today. The way he looked at you when you weren't watching, the way he made sure every kid at that party felt included, not just Noah, the way he asked me about my arthritis and actually listened to the answer. That's not a man playing a role. That's a man who's found his family and is terrified of losing them. We're not his family. Aren't you? Family isn't just blood, Maya. It's the people who show up, who stay, who choose you every single day. That man is choosing you. The question is, are you brave enough to choose him back?" 2 weeks later, Julian asked Maya and Noah to come to dinner. Not at a restaurant, at his new condo. "I want you to see where I live now," he said during their Saturday coffee. "I want you to know me, really know me, see my space, my life, no secrets." Maya agreed, but her stomach was nervous as they took the elevator up to the 8th floor. This was different from coffee dates. This was entering his private world. The condo was modest by billionaire standards. 2 bedrooms, a living space, a kitchen with an actual dining table instead of a marble island. But what struck Maya was the personality. Photos on the walls, not expensive art. Photos of places Julian had traveled, of Patricia at the office, of the Employee Resource Center on opening day. And on the refrigerator, held by magnets, a child's drawing, Noah's drawing from the science fair, showing his sorting machine. "You kept it," Maya said softly. "Of course I kept it. It reminds me of what matters." Dinner was simple. Pasta, salad, garlic bread. Julian cooked while Noah explored the condo with permission, marveling at the telescope by the window, the bookshelf full of engineering texts. "Can I look through the telescope?" Noah called. "Sure, buddy. It's focused on the moon right now." They ate at the table, passing dishes, talking about their days. It felt domestic, normal, like a family. After dinner, Julian helped Noah with his telescope observation, teaching him about lunar features and gravitational pull, while Maya cleaned up despite Julian's protests. In the kitchen, washing dishes, she looked through the doorway at the man and boy, bent over the telescope together, Noah's excited chatter and Julian's patient explanations, and thought, this is what it could be like. This could be our life. The thought didn't scare her as much as it once would have. When Noah fell asleep on the couch an hour later, full of pasta and moon facts, Julian carried him to the car with the tenderness of a father. Maya watched, her throat tight, as he buckled the sleeping boy into the back seat. "He's special," Julian said quietly. "You've raised an incredible human being. He likes you." trusts you. That's not something I take lightly. I know. I won't break that trust, Maya. Not again. They stood in the parking garage. The city sounds distant, just the two of them and a sleeping child and the weight of everything unspoken. Julian, Maya stopped, searching for words. I'm trying to trust again, to let go of the anger. It's just hard. I know it is, and I'll wait as long as it takes. Months, years, however long you need. What if I never fully forgive you? Then I'll spend the rest of my life earning forgiveness anyway. Because you and Noah are worth it, worth every second. Maya looked up at him, at his grey eyes full of hope and patience and love, and made a decision. She kissed him. Not the desperate kiss of the parking lot after the science fair. This was different, careful, intentional. A kiss that said, I'm choosing to try, I'm choosing hope over fear, I'm choosing you, with full knowledge of your flaws and mine. When they broke apart, Julian pressed his forehead to hers. Maya, I'm not saying everything's fixed. I'm not saying I'm not still scared, but I'm saying I want to try, really try. Not just coffee on Saturdays, but actual dating, being together, building something real. Are you sure? No. But I'm sure that I want to find out if we can do this, if broken things can be mended. They can. His voice was rough. I know they can. Because you're mending me every day. They stood there, holding each other in a parking garage, and it felt like beginning again. Better this time, honest this time, real. By December, they were inseparable. Maya spent her days off at Julian's condo. He came to her apartment after work, helping Noah with homework, staying for dinner, becoming part of the fabric of their lives. He met her best friend, Jennifer, who interrogated him thoroughly and finally pronounced him acceptable, barely. He attended Noah's school winter concert, sitting between Maya and Sarah, applauding louder than anyone when Noah played his part in the band. He hired Maya officially at Thor Logistics, not as his driver, but as community relations manager, overseeing the Employee Resource Center. She'd protested at first, but he'd insisted. You created this program with your words. You should help run it. And before you say it's nepotism, there were 3 other qualified candidates. I recused myself from the decision. Marcus and Patricia chose you unanimously. The job paid well, had reasonable hours, and let her work with people who genuinely appreciated what the company had become. Maya finally quit the diner, though she still visited Rosie weekly, because some connections were worth maintaining. Christmas came. Maya spent it at Sarah's house, a tradition, but this year Julian was there too, fitting into their family like he'd always belonged. He brought thoughtful gifts, a new tablet for Sarah to help with her arthritis-affected hands, engineering books for Noah and for Maya, a framed photo of the 3 of them from Noah's birthday party, laughing together, captured by Sarah's camera. This is us, Julian said when Maya opened it, her eyes filling. This is what I see when I think about my future, if you'll have me in it. Julian, I'm not proposing, not yet. I know we're still rebuilding, but I want you to know my intentions. I want forever with you, Maya, with Noah, with the family we're becoming. Maya kissed him in front of her mother and son and God and everyone, and didn't care who saw. That night, after Noah was asleep and Julian had left to give them their traditional Christmas Eve mother-son time, Sarah said, "He's going to propose soon. You know that, right?" "I know." "And what will you say?" Maya thought about the journey they'd taken, from a parking lot in the rain to coffee dates to family dinners, from broken trust to careful rebuilding, from anger to understanding to love. "I'll say yes," she said, "because he's earned it. Not with money or grand gestures, but with showing up, being consistent, loving Noah, respecting my boundaries, becoming the man he said he wanted to be. Your father would have liked him." "Yeah, I think he would have." 3 months later, on a rainy evening in March, exactly 1 year after they'd met, Julian asked Maya to meet him at an unusual location. The address he'd texted was familiar but strange. It took her a moment to realize why. It was the grocery store where her car had broken down, where everything had begun. Maya drove there with Noah, confused but curious. In the parking lot, in the exact spot where she'd cried a year ago, Julian stood waiting. He wore jeans and a simple sweater. No suit, no pretense, just himself. "Why are we here?" Maya asked, getting out of the car. "Because this is where it started, where I saw you at your lowest and realized I'd caused that pain. Where you offered me $5, because dignity mattered more than pride. Where I began to understand what I'd become." He took her hands. "A year ago, I stood in this spot and made a silent promise to become worthy of the trust in your son's eyes and the strength in yours. I want to know if I've kept that promise. Jules, wait, there's more." He nodded to Noah, who'd been standing by the car, practically vibrating with excitement. Noah ran over, carrying a small box. He handed it to Julian with ceremony, then stepped back with a huge grin. Julian knelt down on one knee, right there in the parking lot where rain had poured and hope had seemed impossible. "Maya Elizabeth Brooks, you saved my life. Not with kindness or patience or forgiveness, though you've shown me all those things. You saved my life by refusing to let me hide from what I'd become, by walking away when I deserved it, by demanding that I be better instead of just wealthier." Maya's hands were shaking. Noah was filming on his phone, tears streaming down his face. "You taught me that efficiency without humanity is just cruelty, that 4 minutes doesn't define 7 years, that the only real wealth is measured in love, not dollars. You showed me how to be human again." He opened the box. Inside, a simple ring. Not ostentatious, not flashy, just beautiful, with a single stone that caught the streetlight. "I'm not asking you to marry a billionaire CEO. I'm asking you to marry Julian Thorne, the man who fixes cars in the rain and helps 8-year-olds build circuits and eats leftover spaghetti like it's a feast. The man who loves you so much it terrifies him. The man who wants to spend every day for the rest of his life proving he's worthy of you." Maya was crying openly now. "Julian, I already asked Noah's permission. He said yes, by the way, very enthusiastically." Julian smiled through his own tears. "But I need to hear it from you. Maya, will you marry me? Will you let me be your partner, your equal, your family? Will you trust me with your heart one more time?" Maya looked at him. This man who'd destroyed her life and then rebuilt it with her, who'd learned to value people over profits, who'd become the father her son never had and the partner she'd stopped believing existed. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Julian slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then stood and pulled her into his arms. Noah ran over and they hugged together, the three of them in a parking lot in the rain that had started falling, just like a year ago. But this rain felt different, not like tears, like cleansing, like new beginnings. "I love you," Julian said into her hair. "I love you both so much." "We love you too," Noah said, his voice muffled against Julian's chest. "Can I call you Dad now? I've been wanting to for months." Julian's sob was audible. "I'd be honored." They stood there, soaking wet and perfectly happy, until other shoppers started applauding, and someone yelled, "Congratulations," and they realized they were making a scene. But Maya didn't care. Let them stare. Let them see that fairy tales sometimes started in parking lots with broken-down cars and ended with broken people choosing to heal together. Let them see that second chances were real, that people could change, that love wasn't about perfection, but about choosing each other, flaws and all, every single day. As they drove home together, Noah chattering about wedding plans and calling Julian Dad with unself-conscious joy, Maya looked at the ring on her finger and thought about the journey that had brought her here. From 4 minutes late to forever together. from desperation to hope, from broken to whole, and she smiled. The wedding took place on a perfect June evening, exactly 3 months after the proposal, in a place that surprised everyone. Not a church or a country club or a fancy hotel ballroom, but the Thorn Logistics Employee Resource Center in the industrial garden Julian had built on the roof, where flowers grew from concrete and beauty emerged from machinery, symbolic of everything they'd become. The guest list was unusual. Sarah, of course, in a new dress she'd insisted on buying herself, crying happy tears through the whole ceremony. Jennifer, Maya's best friend, as maid of honor, still slightly suspicious of Julian, but willing to admit he'd grown on her like a particularly persistent fungus. Marcus Chen stood as Julian's best man, having watched his friend transform from cold efficiency to warm humanity. Patricia sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, proud as any mother, but most of the guests were employees, current and former, people whose lives had been touched by the changes Maya and Julian had created together. They filled the rows of simple chairs, and their presence felt like blessing and witness combined. Noah stood between Julian and Maya, holding both their hands, wearing a suit he'd picked out himself and a bow tie that matched his mother's dress. At 8 years old, he took his role as ring-bearer with utmost seriousness, having practiced the ceremony a dozen times. Father Tom O'Brien, the parish priest who'd known Maya since Noah was born, officiated with warmth and gentle humor. "We're gathered here today," he began, "to witness something miraculous, not the joining of 2 people in marriage, though that's certainly miraculous enough, but the triumph of hope over fear, of forgiveness over anger, of love over all the reasons love shouldn't work." Maya and Julian stood facing each other, hands clasped, and the late afternoon sun made everything golden. "Julian and Maya have written their own vows," Father Tom said. "Julian," Julian took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the garden. "Maya, a year and 3 months ago, I saw you crying in a parking lot, and I thought I was being noble by helping. I didn't know that you were actually helping me, saving me from a life of cold efficiency and empty success. You taught me that people matter more than profit, that dignity isn't defined by bank accounts, that the richest man isn't the one with the most money, but the one with the most love." His voice cracked slightly. "You walked away when I deserved it. You made me earn my way back. You refused to let me buy redemption. You demanded that I actually change, not just apologize, and that demand saved my life." He squeezed her hands. "I promise to value you every day, not for what you do, but for who you are. I promise to be a father to Noah in deed, not just word. I promise to never forget where we started or take for granted where we are. I promise to choose humanity over efficiency, love over control, and you over everything else. Always." Maya was crying, ruining her makeup. She took her own shaky breath. "Julian, you broke my heart. Let's start there. Because any marriage built on pretending the past didn't happen is built on sand. You broke my heart with your lies and your secrets and your belief that you could fix everything with money." The guests shifted uncomfortably, but Julian's eyes never left hers. "But then you did something remarkable. You listened. You changed. Not because it was easy or profitable, but because it was right. You dismantled your empire and rebuilt it with compassion. You loved my son like he was your own. You earned back my trust through consistency, honesty, and patience." Her voice strengthened. "You showed me that broken things can be mended, that people can transform, that second chances aren't just possible but precious. You became the man I always believed you could be, not perfect, but real. And I love the real you more than I ever could have loved the fantasy." She smiled through tears. "I promise to trust you with my heart, scary as that is. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our pasts and our future. I promise to be your equal partner, your honest critic, and your fiercest supporter. I promise to remember that you're human, flawed and beautiful just like me. And I promise to love you, Julian Alexander Thorne, for exactly who you are. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Father Tom smiled. Noah, the rings, please. Noah stepped forward importantly, producing the rings from his pocket without dropping them, having stressed about this moment for weeks. These rings, Father Tom said, were made from gold melted down from something old and remade into something new, much like the people wearing them. Julian slipped the ring on Maya's finger. She slipped one on his, simple bands, inscribed on the inside with the date of the parking lot, not the wedding. Because that's when their real story had begun. By the power vested in me, and more importantly, by the power of the love that brought you here, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Julian, you may kiss your bride. And he did, tender and sweet and full of promise. The garden erupted in applause and cheers, and somewhere in the crowd, Patricia was sobbing openly. When they broke apart, Noah hugged them both, and Julian lifted him up. We're a family now, he said. Official and everything. Can I change my name? Noah asked. Can I be Noah Thorne? If your mum says yes, nothing would make me prouder. Maya nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The reception was joyful and simple. No 5-course meal, just good food from local restaurants, including Rosie's Diner. No formal dancing, just music and laughter, and employees sharing stories about how the company had changed their lives. Marcus gave a toast. I've known Julian for 15 years. I watched him build an empire, achieve impossible things, and become very wealthy. But I've never seen him truly happy until he met Maya. She didn't make him rich. She made him human, and that's worth more than any fortune. Patricia's toast was shorter. Maya, when you walked into our lives, you were a storm. You disrupted everything. You challenged everything. You demanded better. Thank you for refusing to let Julian stay broken. Thank you for teaching him to love, and thank you for giving me back the man I used to know, before success made him cold. When it was Sarah's turn, she simply raised her glass. To my daughter, who survived more than anyone should have to. To Julian, who proved that people can change. To Noah, who deserves every bit of happiness coming his way. And to all of us, witnesses to the miracle of second chances. As the evening wore on, Julian and Maya snuck away to a quiet corner of the garden, needing a moment alone in the celebration. How are you? He asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Happy, terrified, hopeful, all of it, having regrets. Not even one. She leaned into him. I'm just thinking about how far we've come, from that parking lot to here. It seems impossible. The best things usually do. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for giving me this chance, for believing I could change. Thank you for actually changing, not just saying you would. They stood together, watching their guests, their family, celebrate the union that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Ready for the rest of our lives? Julian asked. Ready. 5 years later. The garage behind Julian and Maya's house was a mess of tools and parts, and two people bent over a very familiar 2008 Honda Civic. Hand me that wrench, 13-year-old Noah said, his voice starting to deepen, his frame shooting up toward what promised to be his father's height. Julian passed it over, pride evident on his face. Your mother's going to cry when she sees this. Good tears, though, right? The best tears. They'd been working on the car for 6 months, the car from the parking lot, the car that had brought them together. Julian had bought it from the junkyard where Maya had eventually sold it, and he and Noah had been slowly, carefully, lovingly restoring it. Not to perfect condition, but to working condition, to honored condition, to family treasure condition. Dad, Noah said, not looking up from the engine, can I ask you something? Anything, bud. Are you glad she quit? That day she left your car and walked away. Julian was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, but looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened, because it forced me to confront what I'd done, to actually change, not just apologize. Your mom walking away was the wake-up call I needed. She's strong like that. She is, strongest person I know, Julian smiled. You're a lot like her, you know. Noah grinned. Good, but I'm also like you. Mom says I got your stubbornness and her common sense. That's a dangerous combination. They laughed together, the easy laughter of a father and son who'd chosen each other, who'd built their relationship on honesty and respect and love. The back door opened. Maya appeared on the porch, 3-year-old Grace on her hip, the toddler's dark curls bouncing as she pointed at the garage. Daddy, Noah, car! Grace had a limited vocabulary, but used it with enthusiasm. Hey, beautiful girls, Julian called. Want to see our progress? Maya walked over, and Julian's breath still caught when he looked at her. 5 years of marriage, a daughter together, a life built on second chances and honest love, and she still made his heart race. We're almost done, Noah said excitedly. Just need to replace the serpentine belt and adjust the timing. She'll run like new. Not new, Julian corrected gently. Better than new. Because this car has history. This car brought us together. Maya set Grace down, the toddler immediately toddling toward Noah, who caught her with practiced ease. She traced her hand over the hood of the car, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I can't believe you kept it. All these years. Of course we kept it. This is where our story began. In a parking lot, with me crying and you annoying. I was helpful. You were annoying first, then helpful. They grinned at each other. The old argument, a comfortable routine. Mama cry? Grace asked, concerned. Happy tears, baby girl, Maya said, kissing her daughter's head. Just remembering when I met your daddy. Daddy fixed car. He did. He fixed a lot of things. Julian wrapped his arms around his wife from behind, chin resting on her shoulder, watching their children. Noah explaining engine parts to Grace, who nodded seriously like she understood. Their family, built from broken pieces and second chances. Dinner's in 10 minutes, Maya said. You two need to wash up. 5 more minutes, Noah pleaded. We're so close. 5 more minutes. Then food, homework, and bed. School tomorrow. Noah groaned but nodded. Maya took Grace back inside, but turned at the door. Julian? Yeah, I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do. I love the life we've built, the family we've become, all of it. I love you too, more than I have words for. She smiled and disappeared inside. Julian returned to the car, to his son, to the work of restoring something broken into something beautiful. You know, Noah said thoughtfully, when I was little, before you, Mom used to look so tired, so sad, like she was carrying the whole world. But now she smiles all the time, even when she's yelling at us for leaving tools in the living room. Your mum's always been strong. I just helped carry some of the weight. No, Dad. You gave her a reason to put the weight down. There's a difference. Julian looked at his son, this brilliant, compassionate boy who was rapidly becoming a remarkable young man, and felt his throat tighten. When did you get so wise? Learned from the best. From a woman who survived everything life threw at her, and from a man who learned how to actually live instead of just succeeding. They worked in comfortable silence until Maya called them in for dinner. At the table, they joined hands, a family ritual. Grace, do you want to say grace? Julian asked, smiling at the pun he made every night. Thank you, food. Thank you, family. Thank you, car that brought Daddy. Amen. Everyone laughed. They ate together, talking about their days, about Noah's upcoming science competition, about Grace's preschool adventures, about the new community center Thorn Logistics was opening in the suburbs. After dinner, after homework and bedtime stories, and tucking Grace into her crib, Julian and Maya stood on their back porch, looking at the garage where the restored car sat. "Do you ever think about that night?" Maya asked. "Really think about it. How differently everything could have gone. All the time. If I'd just driven past, if you'd refused my help, if you'd accepted the job but never forgiven me, so many ways it could have ended differently. But it didn't. We chose each other, over and over, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard." Julian pulled her close. "You know what the best part is." "What?" "We get to keep choosing each other. Every day for the rest of our lives. That's not luck or fate. That's decision, commitment, love." Maya tilted her face up to kiss him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I choose you, Julian Thorne, today and every day." "I choose you too, Maya Thorne. Forever." They stood together under the stars, listening to the sounds of their children sleeping safely inside, the symbol of their journey resting in the garage, and felt the deep contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, with exactly who you're supposed to be with, not because it was easy, but because it was real, because they'd fought for it, worked for it, chosen it. Because sometimes the greatest love stories start in parking lots with broken-down cars and crying women and men who are given a chance to be better than they were. Because second chances, when earned through genuine change and honest effort, lead to the most beautiful futures. Because broken things, when mended with care and patience and love, become stronger than they ever were before. And because, in the end, the truest measure of wealth isn't found in bank accounts or boardrooms or penthouse apartments. It's found in the laughter of children, in the hand of a partner who chose to trust again, in the quiet moments of a Sunday morning, drinking coffee together while the world wakes up. It's found in parking lots and promises, in parking lots and promises, in transformation and trust, in families built not from perfection, but from perseverance. Julian Thorne had learned this lesson in the hardest way possible, but he'd learned it well, and he'd spend the rest of his life grateful for the woman who'd taught him, the woman who'd saved him by refusing to be saved, the woman who'd loved him not for who he was, but for who he could become, the woman who'd given him not just a second chance, but a second life. And as they stood together on that porch, in that moment, in that perfectly imperfect life they'd built together, Julian knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was the wealthiest man alive, not because of the billions in his bank account, but because of the love in his home, and that made all the difference. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.